Chapter 380. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. King Ning was considering whether he should raise the price or not. Why did he have to think about it? It was not that he couldn't afford it, but that this young man didn't play by the rules. He felt that it was meaningless to continue the discussion. Although he didn't raise the price because of this consideration, it was inevitable that people would suspect that he was stingy and unwilling to raise the price. The embarrassment of being dominated by the words, "Are you going to buy me a house?" came up again. It was the first time they met, and the ability and mutual trust shown by this young man were not worth a house. But in the end, it always gave people an illusion that King Ning was stingy and couldn't afford the house. King Ning had lived for more than 20 years, and it was the first time that he had experienced such a situation where he was unwilling to accept the situation and retreated. King Ning took a deep breath, opened his mouth and was about to say something. Gu Jiao raised her small hand coldly and made a gesture to stop him. Then she wrote in her small notebook, "The time to consider is over. Goodbye." King Ning was stunned. What did she mean by the time to consider was over? He just hesitated for a moment. How could even the right to choose be terminated? It was always him who stopped others, and no one stopped him. The lethality of this sentence was more terrible than, "Are you going to buy me a house?" Or, "If you listen to him again, you have to raise the price." Originally, he planned to leave Gu Jiao hanging and frustrate Gu Jiao's spirit. That way, he wouldn't be in such a passive situation when they talked next time. But who would have thought that she didn't even give him a chance to raise the price? King Ning only felt that he had been hit in the chest with a hammer, and a sentence floated in his mind. He should have raised the price earlier. Gu Jiao did what she said. After writing that sentence, she put away her small notebook and left without looking back. No matter how King Ning's guards urged her to stay, she didn't change her mind. King Ning was unlikely to be rough with her. He clenched his fists, resisted the slight trembling of his body, and finally asked her, "When will young hero Xiong come next time?" Gu Jiao did not answer. She had already walked out. Prince Ning leaned back in his chair and panted heavily. He was not too angry. After all, he was a young man of Zhonghu. It was inevitable that he would have some arrogance. Prince Ning was not so narrow-minded. He would not be like the crown prince, who would feel offended by someone who did not respect him. He had always been tolerant of such talented advisors and chivalrous men of the world. But today, Prince Ning wanted to say that he wasn't angry, but his heart had been stabbed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. How could there be such a weird person? He didn't reveal his identity, so it wasn't strange that the other party was so bold. What was strange was that this method of choking people was unheard of. "Water," King Ning said. The guard hurriedly brought him some tea. Ning Wang drank half the pot in one go before he was finally able to relieve some of the depression in his heart. He said to the guard, "Go and find out who introduced this Xiong Batian." The underground martial arts field was very well hidden. Most people would not be able to find this place. Most people relied on someone familiar to introduce them or people from the martial arts field to find them. Finding out this information was not difficult. The guard quickly came back and reported, replying to Master, it was a branch manager called Old He. The branch shopkeeper was a respectable name. In fact, they were hired by the underground dojo to recruit people. They usually appeared in the various dojos in the capital, looking for strong martial arts seedlings and then brought them to the underground dojo. Every person they brought would have a share of the arena's profits in the future. Prince Ning gave the guard a bag of silver. "Go and tell him that the next time Xiong Batian comes, tell him to come to my residence and inform me." "Yes," the guard replied. The residence that Prince Ning was talking about was not his own residence. It was another residence. Prince Ning would not easily reveal his identity. The guard went to find Old He while thinking that this Xiong Batian was really a little troublemaker. After following his master for so long, he had never seen him choke like this before. Prince Ning was the most outstanding and calm among all the princes. He was both intelligent and courageous. He was highly talented and was the role model of all the princes. His performance today was indeed a little unexpected. He had to go back and think about it carefully so that he would not be so passive next time. Gu Jiao came out of the Narcissus Embroidery Building and hired a carriage to go to the Imperial College. The timing was just right. Little Jing Kong had just finished school and ran out with a head full of sweat. The students in the elementary school had already figured out his pattern. He was usually more aloof than the teachers. Once he became a 3-year-old child, he would definitely be the older sister at home. Gu Jiao was standing under a big tree by the roadside, thinking about how she should charge the next time Prince Ning came to her. The Zhuang family was so rich. As the grandson of Grand Tutor Zhuang, Prince Ning should not lack money. This was a pot of golden leek. She had to harvest it well. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong threw himself at Gu Jiao and hugged Gu Jiao's thigh. Gu Jiao stopped thinking for a second and looked at the little dumpling who had turned into a pendant on her leg. She picked him up and looked at his sweaty face. She asked, "Did you run a race again today? You're sweating so much." "I learned Kuju today," little Jing Kong said cutely. Gu Jiao had seen Kuju in the grassland of the Qinghe Academy before. It was similar to soccer in her previous life. The ball was kicked into the goal. The only difference was that soccer's goal was called a goal. It was very big and there were 2 goals on the ground. Kuju's goal was called a romantic eye. It was very small and there was only one in the sky. Moreover, there was no net in the romantic eye. In short, Kuju was a very popular sport in the 6 nations. Gu Jiao took out a handkerchief. Little Jing Kong obediently stretched his little head over. "How's it going? Do you know how to kick?" Gu Jiao asked while wiping his sweat. Little Jing Kong nodded vigorously. Yes. I'm very good at it. I almost kicked it into the romantic eye." The small empty space was half the size of the Kuju court. Little Jing Kong was not to be blamed. He was too small and his arms and legs were too short. When he kicked, he fell down before he could kick the Kuju ball. Moreover, the romantic eye was set according to the height of most children. They ranged from 6 to 8 years old. Although he was already 4 years old, little Jing Kong looked like he was only 3.5 years old. He was at a disadvantage. After that, he almost never touched Kuju because no one passed it to him anymore. The little guy was also very frustrated. The corners of Gu Jiao's lips curled up. "Is it really good?" Little Jing Kong's eyes were as big as a bull's. Really? I've been kicking it. Jing Kong, do you want to come to my house to play Kuju?" In the carriage by the roadside, Su Dangcong waved at Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong's eyes flashed. He put his little hands behind his back. No. It's not very fun." He refused to admit that he was not good at it and could not even touch Kuju. Su Dangcong was not in the same class as him, so she did not know that he almost did not touch Kuju today. Su Dangcong waved her hand. "Okay, then I'll go first. Tell me what you like to play next time. I'll play with you." "Okay." Little Jing Kong answered vaguely. After Gu Jiao wiped little Jing Kong's sweat, she held his hand and went back to Qingshui Alley. After they went back, Gu Jiao made a Kuju ball for little Jing Kong. She also took down the shelf where she dried the herbs and made a romantic eye beside the crabapple tree in the backyard. It was slightly bigger than the one in the academy and was at a height suitable for little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong came out after finishing his homework and saw the Kuju ball on the threshold. Wow! His big eyes lit up and his eyelashes fluttered. His little eyelash fairy was just like this. He bent down, picked up Kuju with his small hands, and ran towards the rear courtyard. He saw the flirtatious eyes, who was obviously shorter than the directorate, and pounced over excitedly. He put down the Kuju ball, tiptoed and hugged the big romantic eye. Xiao Lulang went on a business trip again. This time, he was in the capital. The Examination Institute was holding a random examination for some of the officials of the 6 ministries. The examination would last for 3 days. As one of the invigilators, Xiao Lulang would enter the examination institute with the officials. It was not the first time Xiao Lulang came to the examination institute. However, he used to sit in the examination shed, but now he was sitting in the invigilator's seat. He did not need to mark the papers. After the examination 3 days later, he could leave with the officials. Xiao Lulang was not at home. Gu Jiao went to the underground martial arts arena again the next day. He took the money from Prince Ning's bodyguard, but he did not immediately send the message to Prince Ning. Instead, he found Gu Jiao and told her about it. This kind of thing was not rare in the martial arts arena. Many big shots would secretly bribe masters. However, these big shots were all famous in the capital. Generally, they would not let the people in the martial arts arena know their true identity. If you want to see him, I'll send the message to him now. If you don't want to see him, I'll walk slowly. When the message arrived, Gu Jiao had already left. This was not a dereliction of duty. He only promised to send the message, but not to keep Gu Jiao here. Gu Jiao made an "oh" sound. It's fine. Go send the message. The sooner the better. Gu Jiao fought 2 matches in the afternoon. She did not arrange for the 3rd match because there was no suitable opponent. The underground martial arts arena had a rule. You could not fight someone 3 levels higher than you. In other words, Gu Jiao, who did not have a rank, could only fight with a level 2 master. The bladesman was the first master that Gu Jiao fought. She thought that he would be the appetizer. Who would have thought that he would be the hardest dish? It was no wonder that the bladesman was so popular. There were not many people below level 3 who were stronger than him. At least, the 4 masters that Gu Jiao fought later were not as good as him. After Gu Jiao defeated the bladesman, she gained a bit of fame in the underground martial arts arena. Today, there were finally a few more people who bet on her victory. Unfortunately, she only received 10 taels of silver. No matter. If the money was not enough, the leeks would make up for it. See, the leeks were here. Gu Jiao stepped down from the arena. Ning Wang personally walked up to the arena. He had changed his clothes, but the jade mask on his face was still the same as yesterday. His mask could only show his mouth and chin. He smiled and said, "Young hero Xiong, we meet again. I watched the 2 matches just now. You played even better than yesterday. Do you have time to come in?" Gu Jiao took out the price list that she had already written in a small notebook. She handed it to him. 50 taels of silver for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. The god's eyebrows twitched. It was not 10 taels yesterday. Gu Jiao wrote, "The price has increased." Guard, Ning Wang. The time it takes to burn a stick of incense was about half an hour in her previous life. It was not more, not less. It was the price that Gu Jiao could accept. The guard behind Ning Wang twitched his mouth. "You are raising the price." Gu Jiao. "Congratulations, you got it right." Ning Wang also felt that the price was too high. It should be known that 50 taels of silver was enough to buy a master outside. However, with the lesson of the past, Ning Wang did not dare to hesitate today. Moreover, with his wealth, 50 taels of silver was not worth mentioning. Okay. He agreed. Gu Jiao accepted the money before entering the room with him. Ning Wang had just sat down when he saw Gu Jiao light an incense stick on the table. Ning Wang, young hero Xiong, to be honest, I came to find you not only to make friends with you, but also to make a deal with you. Making a deal was the strategy that Ning Wang came up with last night. Since this young man called Xiong Batian was so greedy, then he would use money to make him bend. There was no need to force him to come to his side as a god. Gu Jiao quickly wrote, "The deal will be charged separately. The fee will not change." Ning Wang's mouth twitched and he smiled. "Of course, I will not treat young hero Xiong unfairly." In another room with a gourd hanging, a luxuriously dressed man and a fairy-like woman slowly sat down. They had just arrived. They had something to do today, so they came a little late. "Is there Knife Mountain guest today?" The woman wearing a veil asked. The servant said, "Madam, Knife Mountain guest was injured in a fight yesterday. He can't get out of bed today." "Oh, he's injured?" The woman was surprised. "Who injured him?" In the woman's impression, Knife Mountain guest should be unrivaled in his current level. The servant said, "A new young man. He looks weak, but his moves are very powerful. He defeated Knife Mountain guest with one move, and then won 3 matches in a row." Winning 3 matches in a row was nothing, but to defeat Knife Mountain guest with 1 punch was beyond the woman's expectations. "Your Highness." The woman looked at the man. The man asked, "Where is that young man?" The servant thought for a moment and said, "He just finished the fight. It seems that he was called away." The man said, "Go see if he left. If he hasn't left, bring him to see me." The woman looked at him worriedly. "Your Highness." The man held her hand and smiled. "Lin Lang, don't worry. I will send someone to take you to the Yen Kingdom." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111045604. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 381. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Gu Jiao learned from King Ning that the top 3 masters in the underground arena were qualified to go to the Yen Kingdom to compete and could bring others with them. Gu Jiao knew the relationship between the Zhao Kingdom and the Yen Kingdom. The Yen Kingdom was a superior country. Without the Yen Kingdom's permission, even the emperor of the Zhao Kingdom couldn't go there easily. However, a small underground arena was qualified to send masters to the Yen Kingdom. Nominally, it was a competition, but in fact, it was an opportunity to win them over. Such arenas existed in all the 6 countries. The Yen Kingdom's method was too simple and crude. King Ning said, "The first and second masters haven't appeared for many years. There is no chance to compete with them. The third master has only come to the arena recently." King Ning's meaning was obvious. Gu Jiao only needed to defeat the third master. "I believe in young hero Xiong's strength." Gu Jiao didn't believe that. He only said this to her. She was afraid that he was casting a net and focusing on training her. In addition, Gu Jiao extracted a message from their conversation. King Ning wanted to go to the Yen Kingdom. "Young hero Xiong, what do you think?" King Ning asked. Gu Jiao glanced at the incense on the table and stood up. She signaled with her eyes that time was up. King Ning almost choked to death. After Gu Jiao left, the guard looked around warily at the door and returned to King Ning's side to report, "Your Highness, someone was watching us nearby just now." "Has he left?" King Ning asked. "Yes." The guard nodded. King Ning's eyes dimmed. "Did you see who it was?" The guard shook his head. "I didn't see his face clearly, but I felt that his figure was familiar. He seemed to be one of the Crown Prince's men." King Ning picked up the teacup. "So, the Crown Prince is here too?" The guard looked nervous. "Did the Crown Prince find us?" King Ning wasn't worried at all. He took a sip of tea. "It doesn't matter. He has no evidence. Be careful next time. Don't let others watch us." "Yes." However, that servant wandered around Prince Ning's room to no avail and asked the manservant guarding the door before reporting to the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. "I was a step too late. That person has already left." "Gone?" The Crown Prince frowned, looking very displeased. The Crown Princess asked, "Did you find out who he is? Who invited him over just now?" "His name is Xiong Batian, and I don't know who invited him to the east side of the house." The servant reported the information he had gathered. The Crown Princess looked in the direction of his finger and saw a gourd hanging on the roof. She understood that the other person's identity was not simple. The man asked strangely, "Why would someone have such a terrible name? It should be an alias." The servant said, "The people here don't use their real names." The Crown Princess paused for a moment before continuing, "Then go and find out who brought Xiong Batian here." "Yes." The servant responded and turned to leave the room. The Crown Princess sighed, lowered her eyes, and picked up the teacup. The Crown Prince looked at her with heartache. "Lin Lang, don't be sad. He's just a new master. There are others. I can always find someone to get into the top 3 and bring you to the Yen Kingdom to see old Mr. Meng." The Crown Princess lowered her eyes. "Your Highness, am I being selfish? I'm the Crown Princess of the Zhao Kingdom. I have enough. Why should I hope to see old Mr. Meng?" The Crown Prince said seriously, "How can you be selfish? Isn't it right for you to see old Mr. Meng? You broke old Mr. Meng's chess game. If old Mr. Meng knows about it, he will appreciate you. The Yen Kingdom hasn't replied yet. I guess the news hasn't reached old Mr. Meng. When you go to the Yen Kingdom and see him, everything will be solved. I know you want to be old Mr. Meng's disciple. I will help you." The Crown Princess' eyes were filled with tears. "I'm not going to the Yen Kingdom just to see old Mr. Meng. I want to see the culture of the Yen Kingdom. I want to know what the strongest country is like. I want to learn how the Yen Kingdom's monarch rules the country so that I can better assist your Highness when I return." The Crown Prince was moved. "Lin Lang, you're so nice." The Crown Princess smiled. "Your Highness is my husband. This is what I should do. I heard about that young hero just now. I feel that this young hero called Xiong Batian is young and promising. He has great potential." The Crown Prince said, "Since you say so, I'll go and invite him properly." The Crown Princess said earnestly, "It's inevitable for a youth from the pugilistic world to have some pugilistic spirit. It's not impossible to be young and frivolous. Your Highness, remember to treat people with courtesy. Don't let the incident with Bai Nu happen again." At the mention of this, a trace of unnaturalness flashed across the Crown Prince's eyes. Bai Nu was a Turkic expert. He was extremely strong and swift. He was ranked 39th on the ranking list. The Crown Princess asked the Crown Prince to win him over. In the end, he said a few arrogant words to the Crown Prince, and the Crown Prince punished him for being disrespectful. This incident happened outside the martial arts arena. The arena itself did not interfere. However, the Turkic experts spread the news, causing them to lose a few experts who disliked the Crown Prince's actions. The Crown Prince coughed lightly and said, "Don't worry. I won't use my status to pressure him this time. I'll talk to him calmly." Gu Jiao did not know that she was being targeted again. It was still early. It was not yet time for school to end in Little Jing Kong. She went back to the medical center after leaving the Narcissus Embroidery Building. She entered from the back door and did not let anyone see her. She entered her courtyard, took off her mask, washed up, and changed into her usual clothes. Just as she was done, there was a commotion outside the courtyard. "Why did you bump into me?" It was a little girl's voice. "Who bumped into you? You were the one who bumped into me." It was a man's voice. It sounded familiar, like Gu Chengfeng's. "Bumblebee. Cylinder. That's right." In the backyard of the medical center, Gu Changfeng, who came to buy hair growth medicine for his younger brother, bumped into Yuan Tong, who accompanied her elder sister to the clinic. This encounter was like a needle against an awn. Yuan Tong's eyes widened. "You did bump into me on purpose. I didn't expect a man like you to be so narrow-minded. You're bullying a woman." Gu Chengfeng raised his right foot in anger. "Who bullied you? Look at my shoe. You were the one who stepped on me. I didn't say anything, but you're accusing me of bumping into you. You're being unreasonable. Yuan Tong took a closer look. There was indeed a shoe print on it. Her eyes flashed and she stuttered, Who told you not to look at where you're walking? Gu Chengfeng chuckled. I don't look at where I'm walking? Fine, even if I don't, you should have eyes. Why didn't you dodge? So you saw that I didn't have eyes, so you purposely stepped on my foot and bumped into me. Gu Chengfeng didn't mean anything else, but in Yuan Tong's ears, it sounded like she was shameless, unreserved, and purposely trying to attract his attention. Yuan Tong was furious. You're shameless. Gu Chengfeng coldly said, Who's shameless? Yuan Tong huffed. Who's the shameless one? You. Yuan Tong, come back. At the back door of the hall, the pale-faced Taoist nun spoke to Yuan Tong with the help of a maid. Yuan Tong turned around and walked over with a pale face. Elder sister, why did you get off the carriage? Didn't I tell you to wait in the carriage? I'll go get Miss Gu for you. Gu Chengfeng had no grudge against the Taoist nun. Seeing that she was so ill, he didn't want to argue with her younger sister. He snorted and turned around to leave. Gu Jiao came out just as he arrived at the door of the small courtyard. Gu Jiao had already seen the Taoist nun. Her expression didn't look right. Gu Chengfeng cleared his throat. You can go treat the patient first. I'm not in a hurry. Gu Jiao nodded. The consultation room was full at the moment. Gu Jiao had Yuan Tong help the Taoist nun into her courtyard. Gu Jiao couldn't go in, so he waited in the hall for a while. He didn't want to rush her since she wasn't in a hurry, so he waited in the hall, bored to death. The Taoist nun lay on the bed in the side room, her hands clutching her stomach. Cold sweat poured down her face. Where are you feeling unwell? Gu Jiao asked her. The Taoist nun glanced at the maid and Yuan Tong who were standing by the side. Gu Jiao turned around. You can leave first. I'm not used to people watching me when I treat patients. Yuan Tong opened her mouth. Oh, then I'll leave my sister in your care. Gu Jiao nodded. Yuan Tong and the little servant girl retreated. Gu Jiao looked at the Taoist nun again. Can you tell me where you're feeling unwell now? The Taoist nun hesitated, as if she was too embarrassed to speak. After a while she muttered, My stomach hurts. Let me take a look. Gu Jiao took her wrist and began to feel her pulse. The Taoist nun lost her usual composure when she saw Gu Jiao's silence. She bit her lip and whispered, Am I going to have a miscarriage? A miscarriage? Gu Jiao wondered if she had heard wrong. Gu Jiao looked at the Taoist nun's wrist, then at her face. The Taoist nun's eyes reddened and she burst into tears. I knew it. I'm going to have a miscarriage. My baby is gone. Gu Jiao didn't know what to say. Wait, what did I miss? The little Taoist nun cried very sadly. She sobbed and hiccuped, causing Gu Jiao to listen for a long time before she understood the whole story. It turned out that something indescribable had happened between Gu Chongqing and the Taoist nun in the carriage on the day they were rescued. I started it. I tore his clothes. I couldn't control myself. My period hasn't come for 2 months. This morning, I suddenly had a stomachache, and I was bleeding. Of course you would have stomachache and bleed when you were on your period. Gu Jiao looked at her with an indescribable expression. You're just having an irregular menstrual period. You're not pregnant, Gu Jiao said. The Taoist nun cried. I don't believe it. I'm already riding on him. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. Was it really that shocking? You're really not pregnant. You didn't have a miscarriage. You don't have to comfort me. I know, the baby is gone. Sob. Gu Jiao didn't know what to say. She had been a doctor for 2 lifetimes, but this was the first time anyone had questioned her skills. Forget it. Whoever started the trouble should end it. Gu Jiao called Gu Chengfeng over and told him to bring Gu Chongqing here. Gu Jiao didn't say anything, so Gu Chengfeng didn't expect it to be related to the Yuan family. Coincidentally, Gu Chongqing was in the manor today, so Gu Chengfeng quickly brought him over. Gu Jiao used the excuse of buying medicine and food to send Yuan Tong and the maids away, then brought Gu Chongqing into the courtyard. Gu Jiao also wanted to enter the room, but Gu Chengfeng mercilessly refused. In the side room, the Taoist nun had cried herself to sleep. Gu Jiao told her situation to Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing had not expected that this matter would be brought to the surface in such a way. His face, which had never changed in 10,000 years, instantly turned red. There's no such thing. He took a deep breath and pinched his fingers. I didn't do it with her. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Oh, you only touched and rubbed? No. Gu Chongqing wanted to say that he didn't, but he choked on his words. He turned around, his face red as he said seriously, anyway, she won't get pregnant. She's still a virgin. Men always knew more about this than women. Gu Jiao didn't doubt the reliability of Gu Chongqing's words. She pointed at him and said, Then you explain it to her yourself. It's getting late. I have to go pick up little Jing Kong. She carried the small basket on her back and left without hesitation. Gu Chongqing wanted to call her but didn't have time to stop her. Gu Chongqing was in the room. He didn't know whether to stand or sit. No one knew what kind of shame and torment he went through while waiting for the Taoist nun to wake up. What happened that day was indeed an accident. He didn't want to get married in this lifetime. However, they did have physical contact. If she couldn't get over it like Gu Jinyu, then he would take responsibility for her and propose marriage. But after she woke up, she said she didn't want to get married. This matter became a secret between the two of them. Who would have thought? She thought she could get pregnant like that. And she cried when she had a miscarriage. Could it be that she planned to give birth to the child in secret? Without telling him at all? He was the father of the child. No, there was no child. He was almost led astray. Gu Chongqing helplessly pinched the space between his eyebrows. At this moment, the Taoist nun on the bed slowly woke up. She was still immersed in the great sorrow of losing her baby. When she saw Gu Chongqing, she didn't care that she didn't have any feelings for this man. She suddenly felt very wronged and grabbed Gu Chongqing's hand. Sob sob, our baby is gone. Grand Secretary Yuan, who had rushed over after receiving the news, had just arrived at the door when he heard this sentence. Grand Secretary Yuan. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428826/1110450022. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 382. This book's newest chapter is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. What had happened? He had just gone out on a business trip, and when he came back, his granddaughter had even given birth to a baby? No, it was gone again. He had just become a great-grandfather and his little great-grandson was gone. No, the main point was off. How could he have a little great-grandson? Wasn't Yuan Baolin not married yet? That was Baolin's voice. He hadn't misheard, right? Even if he had misheard, this little Taoist nun holding a man's hand was still his family's little Taoist nun, right? He couldn't be blind, right? Grand Secretary Yuan finally came back to his senses. Not only had he heard it, He had even ing caught her in the act. Who was this stinky brat? Before Gu Jiao left, she had already told Gu Chongqing about the little Taoist nun's illness. However, hearing someone else say it was one matter, hearing the little Taoist nun personally complain to him was another matter. She held his hand, large tears falling down. That genuine pain of losing a child shocked Gu Chongqing. Just as he was shocked speechless, a murderous aura suddenly shot out from behind him. Gu Chongqing turned his head and saw Grand Secretary Yuan standing in the doorway in a rage. Gu Chongqing's heart thumped. He almost instinctively pulled back his hand. Unfortunately, it was too late. Grand Secretary Yuan had seen everything he should have seen and heard everything he should have heard. Grand Secretary Yuan charged into the room with murderous aura. Arriving at the bedside, he stood between the two. Gu Chongqing consciously moved back a few steps. "Who are you?" Grand Secretary Yuan sternly asked. The capital's social circle was very large. The Yuan family and Marquis Ding, An's manor had very little interaction. Grand Secretary Yuan had only seen the old Marquis in the throne room. Last time in Jade Water Alley, Gu Chongqing was in the dark, while Grand Secretary Yuan was in the light. This caused Gu Chongqing to secretly see him, while he did not see Gu Chongqing. "It's over now. Even if I jump into the Yellow River, I won't be able to clear my name." Gu Chongqing cupped his hands in greeting. "This one is Ding and Marquis Manor's Gu Chongqing. Greetings to Grand Secretary Yuan." Grand Secretary Yuan narrowed his eyes dangerously. "Gu Chongqing. Gu Chao's grandson?" "Yes." Gu Chongqing cupped his hands, not daring to look straight at Grand Secretary Yuan's face. This was the etiquette of the younger generation, and it was also him who made him feel a bit stupefied and lacking in confidence. Grand Secretary Yuan then thought of the latter part of his words. "You recognize me?" "Yes." Gu Chongqing did not deny it. Now that things had developed to this point, there was no way to hide it anymore. Grand Secretary Yuan wasn't stupid. That day's events were a bit strange to begin with, but since Yuan Baolin insisted that she was fine, he didn't take it to heart. Thinking about it now, it was likely that Yuan Baolin was not saved by Ding and Manor's Madame Gu. Grand Secretary Yuan's gaze turned cold. "It's you? You took Pauline away? You took advantage of her." Once he thought of his own granddaughter leaving the wolf's den of Royal Prince and jumping into the tiger's den of Gu Chongqing and being bullied to the point of having a child, Grand Secretary Yuan hated that he couldn't slaughter this stinky brat on the spot. Gu Chongqing had no way to defend himself. If it was anyone else, they might have been able to cleanly refuse, but Gu Chongqing did not have that kind of personality. At this time, the old Marquis had also rushed over after hearing the news. Once he heard that his own grandson had gotten someone pregnant, the old Marquis was so angry that one Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to the heavens. If this was another girl's home, the old Marquis would not have believed it so easily, but the other party was Grand Secretary Yuan's granddaughter. In addition, Gu Chongqing had tacitly agreed. It was clear that he was entangled with the girl. He pulled out his whip and swung it at Gu Chongqing's body. The little Taoist nun's face turned pale. She reached out a hand to stop the old Marquis while choking with sobs. "Don't hit him. It's not his fault. It's me. I forced myself on him. I forced myself on him." The old Marquis, whose hand trembled as the whip struck his own head. Grand Secretary Yuan, who also seemed to have been struck in the face by an invisible whip. As well as Gu Chongqing, who even though he had been cleared of his crime, he still wished he hadn't been. He might as well smash him to death with a wall. Gu Chongqing had military matters to attend to and would be heading to Fengdu Mountain soon. Just now, he had been packing his luggage in the courtyard. If it wasn't for Gu Chengfeng saying that Gu Jiao wanted to see him, he wouldn't have come at all. Now things were great. It wasn't that he couldn't wash himself clean even if he jumped into the Yellow River, but that he couldn't wash himself clean even if he peeled off a layer of his skin. Grand Secretary Yuan learned about the ins and outs of the matter from his granddaughter's mouth and confirmed that this brat had not taken advantage of his granddaughter in the slightest. Instead, it was his granddaughter who had taken advantage of him quite a bit. Grand Secretary Yuan felt quite apologetic. He apologized to the old Marquis. The old Marquis obviously wasn't angry. No matter how he looked at it, it was still this brat who had taken advantage of him. This brat was someone who practiced martial arts, so he could clearly knock him out with a single palm strike. Since he didn't do that, it meant that he also had a bit of interest in young Miss Yuan, right? Good brat. No wonder he always ignored him when he tried to matchmake him. So it turned out he had secretly taken a fancy to young Miss Yuan? This young Miss Yuan was truly outstanding, not someone an ordinary aristocratic family's young miss could compare to. Take this matter for example. If it was anyone else, they definitely wouldn't have the courage to shoulder all the blame on themselves, resolutely not making things difficult for Gu Chongqing. How could the old Marquis know that the reason why Gu Chongqing didn't knock Yuan Baolin unconscious was because the drug Yuan Baolin was too strong, making it difficult for her to breathe? If she really did faint, it might cause her to suffocate to death. This junior still has matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Gu Chongqing cupped his hands in greeting towards Grand Secretary Yuan and also gave the old Marquis an indifferent greeting before turning around to leave the room. The little Taoist nun chased after him. Don't worry, young Miss Yuan. I won't agree to this marriage. He knew she didn't want to marry him. I won't agree either. She also knew that he didn't want to marry her at all. She couldn't let him shoulder the pressure alone. Gu Chongqing thought she had chased after him precisely because of this matter. Since they had made things clear, it was time for him to leave. Farewell. He turned around to leave. Wait. The little Taoist nun called out to him. Gu Chongqing stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at her. Young Miss Yuan, is there something else you're worried about? I really... The little Taoist nun's eyes drifted as she rubbed her belly. Gu Chongqing's gaze swept over her small movements. He opened his mouth and sighed. You're not pregnant. You can't get pregnant at that level. The little Taoist nun furrowed her brows in confusion. But I clearly... Gu Chongqing used up all the face he had in his lifetime. Pregnancy requires a man's cooperation. The little Taoist nun muttered. It's all written in those novels. When a woman is drugged and pushes a man down, she'll have a child. Gu Chongqing asked strangely, You're a Taoist nun. Why do you read romance novels? Romance novels could kill people. Gu Chongqing felt there was no way to continue this topic. He planned to leave. The little Taoist nun suddenly glanced at Gu Chongqing sympathetically. Or is it because you can't? It's written in those novels that women can't have children only if men can't do it. Gu Chongqing clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. In the future, don't read those novels again. Gu Jiao didn't know that the matter between Gu Chongqing and the little Taoist nun had already reached the ears of Grand Secretary Yuan and the old Marquis, but Gu Changfeng knew. He had been hiding in a large tree and had been watching a good show. At first, when Gu Jiao had only let his older brother into the courtyard and blocked him outside, he had sensed that something wasn't right. After eavesdropping, he realized that his older brother looked serious, but he had secretly found a sister-in-law for him. TSK, this speed was worthy of being his older brother. It was a pity that Ling family's younger cousin was going to be hurt. Ling Shuixian was completely in love with his older brother and wouldn't marry anyone else. He heard that she had been on a hunger strike at home recently. Although Ling Shuixian was his younger cousin, he actually didn't like Ling Shuixian. Ling Shuixian was too arrogant and wasn't suited to be Marquis Ding and Fu's heir's wife. The Yuan family's daughter looked more mature than Ling Shuixian, but her way of thinking was a bit hard to explain. Forget it. As long as his older brother liked her. It was a pity that the girl left early and missed this good show. Gu Changfeng slapped his head. I still haven't gone to buy medicine from that girl. Gu Changfeng used his qinggong to go to Jade Water Alley. Gu Jiao had already brought little Jing Kong back from the directorate. Little Jing Kong was currently playing kuju with a few friends in the alley in the backyard. Gu Jiao was drying medicine in the front yard. Gu Chengfeng told Gu Jiao about the development of Gu Chongqing and the little Taoist nun. Based on this progress, we should be able to have a sister-in-law soon. This was the first time he had used this kind of word. He had always understood that this Gu Jiao in front of him wasn't the real Gu Jiao's mother, so when he blurted out these two words, he felt very surprised. Fortunately, Gu Jiao didn't seem to notice his inappropriate choice of words. Gu Jiao grunted and turned the medicine in the sieve. Quite compatible. Gu Chengfeng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was relieved that Gu Jiao did not chase after him to ask him how he used them and if he was in a hurry to be her older brother or something like that. Of course it's compatible. He was worried that Gu Jiao would come back to her senses, so he quickly changed the topic to the two of them. One is the heir of the Marquis residence, the other is the daughter of the Yuan family. How are they like? He wanted to say, how are they like you and Xiao Lulang? One is the daughter of the Marquis residence, the other is a poor boy from the countryside. But when the words reached his lips, he felt that something was wrong. This girl wasn't the daughter of the Marquis residence. Who knew where she came from, what kind of background she had in that faraway place, and what kind of parents she had? This girl seemed to be a bit pitiful. Gu Jiao didn't know what he was thinking and continued drying the medicine. Right, where's my brother's medicine? Gu Chengfeng asked. Gu Jiao had already taken it out and put it in her purse. She took it out and handed it to him. Gu Chengfeng reached out to take it, but Gu Jiao suddenly took her hand back. Give me the money. Gu Chengfeng had a toothache. You just took 1,000 taels from me last time. Gu Jiao spread her hands. That was the money for the last bottle of medicine. Gu Chengfeng stomped his feet in anger. Go outside and ask around. Which family's medicine is as expensive as yours? Gu Jiao put the medicine back into her purse and patted it, saying, then, go buy it from whichever family's cheaper. Gu Chengfeng's anger was completely extinguished. Of course, he had tried other people's medicine before. However, not only was it ineffective, but it also made Gu Qinglin's hair fall off. Ever since then, he didn't dare to try other people's medicine. Gu Qinglin wore a hat to school every day. It was very uncomfortable in the hot weather. Gu Chengfeng said bitterly, I didn't bring that much money with me today. He took out his purse and poured out the broken silver and copper coins into his hands. Look, it doesn't even add up to 2 taels. I've been very poor recently. Gu Jiao was silent. Gu Chengfeng continued to act pitiful. I'm not like you who only needs to make a living every day. I have to study during the day and can only take on some work at night. But recently, there's not much work to do. Gu Jiao nodded. That's quite pitiful. Right. Gu Chengfeng cried that he was poor while secretly glancing at her. How about this, if you help me run an errand, I'll give you a 10% discount on your medicine. That means I'll charge you less than 10%. Gu Chengfeng's face darkened. Shouldn't the routine be, if you help me run an errand, I'll give you this bottle of medicine? How come it was only 10% less? Examination courtyard. Xiao Lulang finished invigilating for the day and returned to the Jingyi Pavilion with the other invigilators. This was the place where they would rest this time. Their range of activity was from the Jingyi Pavilion to the examination area. They couldn't wander anywhere else. The Jingyi Pavilion was heavily guarded by guards. First, it was to prevent people from colluding with the invigilators to cheat. Second, it was to protect the safety of the invigilators. He was only an invigilator and didn't grade the papers. It was only a bit tiring, but not mentally. The food was sent to the rooms of the invigilators. Not long after he returned to his room, the food was sent over by the guards. Xiao Lulang opened the door and came to the door. He reached out to take the food box. Many thanks. The moment he took the food box, he inadvertently glanced at the guard. The guard took back his hand and turned to patrol. Xiao Lulang frowned suspiciously. Wasn't this the guard who brought him food in the morning and afternoon? Was it a different person for dinner? Xiao Lulang took the food box into the room. Just like at noon, there were 2 dishes and 1 soup. A plate of braised pork with radish, a plate of cold tofu, a bowl of vegetable and egg drop soup, and 2 large and thick steamed buns. Xiao Lulang took out the food one by one. When he brought out the bowl of egg drop soup, his eyes paused for a moment. The days of the 7th month of the lunar calendar weren't that long. At this time, the sun had completely set and the sky was a greenish gray. The light in the room was a bit dim, but it was still okay to eat. Most people wouldn't light a lamp. Xiao Lulang looked at the bowl of egg drop soup and frowned. He lit an oil lamp and turned the wick to the brightest. He saw that there was some strange powder on 2 or 3 floating green onions. At first glance, this powder looked like seasoning, but Xiao Lulang had cooked before. It was one thing if it tasted bad, but he could recognize seasoning. Xiao Lulang picked out the green onions. The smell of the green onions was too strong. It suppressed the smell of the powder, but the powder itself was enough to make people suspicious. If it wasn't for Xiao Liulong's good eyesight, and if it wasn't for Xiao Liulong's familiarity with seasoning, he would have probably thought that it was an ordinary bowl of egg drop soup and drank it. Xiao Lulang not only didn't drink the egg drop soup, he also didn't touch the other food. The bag that Gu Jiao gave him was filled with fruits and jerky. He had just taken it out when a figure jumped in through the window. "Who is it?" Xiao Lulang asked vigilantly. "It's me." Gu Chengfeng, who was dressed in black, took off his mask. He actually didn't want to reveal his identity, but if he didn't reveal it, how could he make him believe him? Xiao Liulong's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, but it wasn't too surprising. Since Gu Jiao went out with him in the middle of the night, he wasn't just an ordinary weak scholar. "Here." Gu Chengfeng threw a bag to Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang opened it and saw that it was a box of exquisite and delicious pastries. It was still slightly steaming, and it was obvious that it had just been made. Gu Chengfeng snorted. "So sour, so sour. Wasn't it just a few days of not coming back? Was it worth it for him to sneak into the tribute institution in the middle of the night to give him pastries?" Xiao Lulang looked at the various pastries in the box and gave a low laugh. Gu Chengfeng was so sour that he rolled his eyes. He didn't even eat dinner before running over to give Xiao Lulang pastries. He saw that there was food on the table, so he rolled up his sleeves and picked up a steamed bun. Xiao Lulang hurriedly said, "Wait. You can't eat it." Gu Chengfeng took a bite. "I already ran an errand to give you pastries, and you still can't eat a steamed bun?" Xiao Lulang said, "No, I might have been drugged." Gu Chengfeng hurriedly spat out the steamed bun in his mouth. "Pay, pay, pay." There are people who would drug the tribute institution? That's right. How could there be people who would drug the tribute institution? Normal people wouldn't be able to reach into the tribute institution. Even if they did, it would be for the sake of cheating. Who would poison the invigilators? While Xiao Lulang was deep in thought, Gu Chengfeng suddenly said, "It can't be white medicine, right? Was it that old witch who did it? Or it could be black medicine. No, it's useless even if I gave you black medicine or white medicine." Xiao Lulang asked in confusion, "What black medicine or white medicine?" Gu Chengfeng covered his mouth. "Oh no, he spilled the beans." Xiao Lulang stared at him. His eyes weren't cold or scary, but there was a kind of sharpness that made people unable to hide. Gu Chengfeng scratched his head. Forget it. I've already said it. You can ask that girl later. She'll know that I spilled the beans all the same." "What exactly is it?" Xiao Lulang asked. Gu Chengfeng sighed and told him about how Gu Jiao had abducted him to the nunnery to steal the black medicine and white medicine. He also told him about how the emperor had been poisoned by the black medicine and white medicine through Xiao Liulong's silent technique. In the end, the radish was pulled out of the mud, and the imperial edict was also pulled out. Xiao Lulang, imperial edict? Everyone cared about different things. For Gu Chengfeng, the emperor being drugged was the most shocking thing. However, what shocked Xiao Lulang the most was the imperial edict in Grand Concubine Jing's hands. That was because he had seen that imperial edict before. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111016378. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 383. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. He hadn't been born when the late emperor passed away, but he had followed the emperor to visit concubine Jing in the nunnery. He was still young at the time and didn't know what he had accidentally seen. It wasn't until he grew up that he realized it was an imperial edict, and from the content, it seemed to have been left behind by the late emperor. He hadn't mentioned it to anyone. He didn't mention it when he was young because he didn't understand. He didn't mention it when he grew up because he felt it was too serious and didn't want to bring disaster to the Marquis estate. Not long after he had seen the imperial edict, he had been poisoned near Rancho Palace. He had never linked the two incidents together. Even after he grew up, he didn't think they had anything to do with each other. As for why he didn't suspect concubine Jing of stealing the imperial edict, it was because he would have done the same if it had been him. But he thought that there must be a knot in his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped Gu Jiao from going to the nunnery outside the palace to treat concubine Jing's illness. Perhaps concubine Jing had long discovered that he had seen the imperial edict, which was why she had poisoned him. It wasn't just to frame Empress Dowager Zhuang, but also to silence him. After he had luckily escaped with his life, Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang had increased his protection, so concubine Jing had no way to do it. Until, "Hey, why aren't you talking? Are you scared out of your wits?" Gu Chengfeng waved his hand in front of his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Xiao Lulang came back to his senses. "No, I'm just thinking about what you just said." That day, he had gone next door to find his teacher and heard him mention Princess Xinyang to Gu Chongqing. His teacher had said that he had something to ask the princess, but he hadn't heard much. He hadn't expected it to be about the imperial edict. He thought it was about concubine Jing. Gu Chengfeng didn't know that he was thinking about the imperial edict, and thought that he was as shocked as he was by concubine Jing's poisoning of the emperor. "I knew she was vicious, but I didn't expect her to do it to His Majesty. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs." Gu Chengfeng suddenly realized that he couldn't find the words to describe this old witch. He curled his lips and snorted, "It's been hard on the Empress Dowager all these years. His Majesty and her didn't have to go to this step. But, I heard that His Majesty's medicine was about to expire, so the old witch went to buy more medicine. I wonder if she has drugged His Majesty recently." Gu Jiao was at the top of the information pyramid, while Gu Chengfeng was ranked second. He still didn't know that concubine Jing had given the emperor the wrong medicine. But soon, he might not even be ranked second. Xiao Lulang paused and said, "Wait a moment. I'll write a reply to Jiao Jiao." Gu Chengfeng's face darkened. "She only brought you some food and you still have to reply to her letter. If he were to die one day, it would definitely be because of their jealousy." Xiao Lulang wrote a note for Gu Chengfeng, folded it, and put it in the pouch that Gu Jiao had given him. He didn't use any security measures. First, he trusted Gu Jiao's judgment. If Gu Jiao could let Gu Chengfeng come over, it meant that Gu Chengfeng was on their side. Second, it was impossible for Gu Chengfeng to come and go as he pleased under the watchful eyes of the Dragon Shadow Guard without any ability. No matter how tightly he sealed it, Gu Chengfeng could still see it if he wanted to. "All right, then I'll make another trip. I was planning to return to the Marquis estate after delivering your food." Gu Chengfeng accepted the pouch. When food was mentioned, his gaze swept over the desserts on the table. That girl wasn't good looking, but the desserts she made were exceptionally exquisite. Thank you, Xiao Lulang said sincerely. If you're sincere about thanking me, then give me one of your desserts, Gu Changfeng said. No. Xiao Lulang heartlessly refused. Gu Changfeng used his qinggong to leave the examination courtyard. Because of the anger in his heart, he didn't even show himself when he went to Jade Water Alley. He directly threw the pouch that Xiao Lulang had him bring back on Gu Jiao's windowsill. Gu Jiao didn't need to guess to know that Gu Changfeng had brought it over. Gu Jiao threw the medicine bottle into the air. As expected, Gu Changfeng nimbly spun around and caught the hair restorer. He landed in front of Gu Jiao's window and said angrily, "You're just blindly throwing it like that. You're not afraid of giving it to the wrong person." Umph. Saying this, he took Gu Qinglin's medicine and plunged into the endless night. Gu Jiao took out the note from the pouch. You already know the contents of the imperial edict. Do not act rashly. Wait for my return. When she read the first two sentences, Gu Jiao's heart didn't waver at all. But when she read the last sentence, the corners of her lips slightly curved into a beautiful arc. Wait for my return. Gu Jiao read the last 4 words. Her elbows were on the windowsill as she rested her chin on her hand and looked into the distance. Why was she a bit happy? Gu Jiao couldn't suppress the smile on her lips. Hey! Gu Changfeng suddenly came back. He was hanging upside down from the roof beam, his head hanging outside Gu Jiao's window. He was almost face to face with Gu Jiao. The difference was that Gu Jiao's face was facing up, while his face was upside down. Gu Jiao looked at this uninvited guest who was ruining the atmosphere. What? Gu Changfeng said, There's something I forgot to tell you. Your husband was poisoned in the examination courtyard. Gu Jiao's expression turned cold. Fortunately, I was there early, just in time. Before Gu Changfeng could finish speaking, Gu Jiao had already jumped out of the window with one hand. Gu Changfeng was stunned. I haven't finished the second half of my sentence. With Gu Jiao's current skills, sneaking into the examination courtyard wasn't a big problem. Although the examination courtyard was big, the layout was simple. The examiners all lived in the Jingyi Pavilion. Xiao Lulang had just finished washing up and was only wearing a thin inner garment. He extinguished the oil lamp on the table and was about to go to sleep when someone gently knocked on the door. Who is it? Xiao Lulang came to the door, removed the bolt, and gently opened the door. It wasn't any of his colleagues outside the door. It was a petite figure dressed in black, wearing a gaudy mask. The pair of eyes under the mask seemed to have gathered the light of the Milky Way all the way to the darkest part of his heart. He looked at her in a daze, and also looked at himself in her eyes in a daze. He forgot to react for a moment. You two, go over there and take a look. A god's voice sounded not far away. Xiao Lulang quickly stretched out his hand and pulled her in, knocking her head into his embrace. He hugged her with one hand and quickly closed the door with the other. Almost at the same time that he locked the door, the guard outside also arrived. You two, go over there and take a look. You two, search this courtyard. You come with me. Yes. Gu Jiao was tightly held in Xiao Liulong's arms. She didn't move, but blinked her large eyes and looked at him. Xiao Lulang raised his index finger and gently placed it on his lips. Gu Jiao understood. She didn't say anything, she understood. Achoo, but she couldn't hold back her sneeze. Her mask was knocked askew. What's that noise? A guard walked towards Xiao Liulong's room. It's me. Xiao Liulong's tone was normal as he said. It's so late. Is Lord Xiao still awake? The guard asked outside the door. Xiao Lulang hugged Gu Jiao, not daring to move a single step. I was asleep, but you guys woke me up again. Sorry. The guard outside the door cupped his hands. It's our brothers who found a fainted guard near the kitchen. It seems like he has been unconscious for a long time. We don't know if there are thieves who have snuck in. We are currently investigating under orders, so we ask Lord Xiao to be patient. Gu Jiao took off the askew mask. He hugged her so tightly that she couldn't pull away, so she simply buried her little head in his chest. Xiao Liulong's heart skipped a beat and his breathing became heavy. He calmed himself down and said, "I didn't hear anything here. You guys should quickly go and take a look at the other lords." "Yes, sir," the guard replied. "Big brother, there's nothing here. There's nothing there either. Let's go." The guards left Jing-yi Pavilion one after another. Xiao Lulang carefully listened to their footsteps. After confirming that the last guard had walked far away, the surroundings became quiet again. However, Xiao Lulang didn't move, and neither did Gu Jiao. There was no light in the room, only a thin ray of moonlight shone in through the paper window. There was almost no light. The night was quiet. He hugged her, hearing each other's breathing and the sound of his own heart beating like a drum. "That guard wasn't knocked out by me. I didn't hit anyone," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang made a sound of agreement and gently let go of her arm. The night covered the red color of his cheeks. "It's so late, why did you come?" Gu Chengfeng said that someone poisoned you. Gu Jiao's fingertips were already on his pulse when she said this. "I didn't eat," Xiao Lulang said. "That god who fainted should be the one who originally brought me dinner." "There's no problem with your pulse?" Gu Jiao asked. "Is the food that was drugged still there?" Xiao Lulang groped his way to the table in the dark and took out a match to light the oil lamp. "It's been taken away. I left some chopped green onions that were drugged." As he spoke, he took out a small porcelain bottle from his bag. Gu Jiao poured out the chopped green onions inside. After carefully examining it, her face darkened. "It's arsenic. Someone actually poisoned her husband with arsenic." Her little fists indicated that they were itchy. Xiao Lulang looked at her fierce little expression and couldn't help but laugh. He raised his hand and gently rubbed the top of her head. "I'm fine. I wasn't poisoned this time. The other person should have guessed that we were exposed and won't make a move for a while. At least they wouldn't make a move in the tribute court. You came here in the middle of the night just for this?" In his eyes, this was an insignificant matter. From the moment he returned to the capital, he had already expected that the road ahead would be filled with thorns. "I will find the culprit," Gu Jiao said seriously. "Okay." Xiao Lulang smiled and stroked the strand of hair on her head that had been blown up by the wind. It was very strange. He wouldn't have done this in the past. They had always been husband and wife in name, but they had never interacted with each other. They were more like guests living under the same roof. They had their own territory and didn't interfere with each other's business. Just when did their boundaries start to blur? Did they start to involve each other in their plans? Xiao Lulang lowered his head and laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Gu Jiao asked. "Nothing." Xiao Lulang shook his head. He just couldn't help but laugh. As for what he was laughing at, he seemed to know, but also didn't. "By the way, what was written in Concubine Jing's imperial edict?" Gu Jiao skipped the question of how he knew the contents of the edict. Xiao Lulang seemed to finally understand what he was laughing at. He was happy. When he was with her, it seemed that he never had to worry about her asking him difficult questions. Of course, he wouldn't purposely ask her about things she didn't want to talk about. This wasn't the cautiousness of someone who understood each other well. It was a natural tacit understanding between the two of them. Xiao Lulang said, "That's an imperial edict left behind by the late emperor. It contains very important matters." Saying it was important was an understatement. It was something that could shake the entire court. Gu Jiao asked, "Does it have anything to do with Grandaunt?" Xiao Lulang nodded. Yes. It seemed that it had something to do with Grandaunt. Otherwise, Concubine Jing wouldn't have used it as a trump card for so many years. Gu Jiao continued to guess. Did the late emperor agree to Grandaunt holding court behind the curtain? If the late emperor had agreed, then Grandaunt wouldn't have had to suffer so much criticism. The fact that Concubine Jing had this imperial edict in her hands was undoubtedly a great obstacle to Grandaunt's path as regent. Xiao Lulang shook his head. No. Gu Jiao changed the direction of her guess. So it's to prevent Grand Aunt from interfering with the court? That's not it either. Xiao Lulang shook his head again. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. It can't really be an imperial edict to bury Grand Aunt with the late emperor, can it? Xiao Lulang fell silent. Seeing him like this, Gu Jiao had an answer in her heart. The imperial edict that the late emperor had issued before his death was indeed for Grand Aunt to be buried with the late emperor. This made Gu Jiao even more confused. But why would concubine Jing keep an imperial edict for Grand Aunt to be buried with the late emperor? She and Grand Aunt were at loggerheads and couldn't wait to get rid of her. Why would she hide an imperial edict? Xiao Liulong's gaze turned deep. Because Grand Aunt isn't the only concubine to be buried with the late emperor. Concubine Jing is also buried with the late emperor. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1110149116. HTML Genius memorized this website's URL in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 384. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. So concubine Jing's name is on the imperial edict as well. Gu Jiao came to a realization. No wonder she wanted to steal it and hide it. Xiao Lulang grunted in agreement. First, it's to save her life. Second, it's to hold on to her final trump card. Gu Jiao rested her chin on her hands and said thoughtfully, Great Aunt won't be threatened by anyone. Even if she really did take out the imperial edict and say, if you don't agree to my terms, I'll announce it to the world and take you down with me, Great Aunt won't give in. So, Xiao Lulang nodded. So her most dangerous move is to take Great Aunt down with her. Gu Jiao slapped the table. That bad woman. Xiao Lulang looked at her angry expression. Although he shouldn't have, a trace of a smile flashed through his eyes. Of course, his smile faded when he thought of Great Aunt's situation. Seeing the imperial edict was something that had happened when he was young. Moreover, it wasn't something he cared about at the time, so that memory had long since been submerged in the river of his memories. If Gu Chengfeng hadn't brought it up, he might not have thought about it for the rest of his life. We have to steal the imperial edict back. They couldn't let concubine Jing hold on to such a ticking time bomb. Gu Jiao didn't care if concubine Jing died or not, but Great Aunt couldn't go to hell with her. Xiao Lulang said, before that, don't push her too far. Otherwise, she might impulsively take Great Aunt down with her. Gu Jiao finally understood what her husband meant when he said not to act rashly. With concubine Jing's current condition, it wasn't appropriate for them to provoke her. That woman had already gone crazy. Who knew what she would do in a fit of anger? Sigh. Gu Jiao sighed. She placed her hands on the table and her head drooped, resting on the back of her hands. Xiao Lulang couldn't help but raise his hand and touch her fluffy little head. It won't take long. Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. She believed him. He trusted him so much that he didn't have to ask him about his plans. Speaking of which, she straightened her body in contemplation. Xiao Lulang calmly retracted his hand. The soft feeling of her hair still remained in his palm, and he gently stroked it with his fingertips. Gu Jiao didn't notice his small action of reminiscing. She looked at him doubtfully and asked, what kind of person was the previous emperor? Why did he want Great Aunt and Grand Concubine Jing to die with him? Xiao Lulang paused. His first reaction was to get rid of the mother and keep the child, but after thinking about it carefully, he wasn't sure if that was the case. It was hard for him to describe what kind of emperor the previous emperor was. The previous emperor had already passed away when he was born. All of his knowledge of the previous emperor came from the previous emperor's documents and rumors. But judging from the previous emperor's arrangements before his death, he was a man of means. Perhaps the reason he buried Empress Dowager Zhuang and old concubine Jing with him was because he saw the influence they had on the new emperor and was worried that the power of the imperial court would fall to someone else. Or maybe the previous emperor had other plans. An emperor's thoughts were deeper than the sea. Who could guess? For example, he didn't understand why Princess Xinyang had the shadow dragon guards. In the end, Xiao Lulang could only say to Gu Jiao, "The truth will come out one day." He didn't say that he didn't know. Of course, he didn't know. But if she wanted to know, he would find the answer. Xiao Lulang looked at the endless night sky. "It's getting late. You should go back and rest." Gu Jiao nodded. "Yes, then I'll come see you tomorrow night." Xiao Lulang looked at her and didn't refuse. "Okay." After Gu Jiao left, Xiao Lulang turned off the light and lay on the thin bed. The box of snacks that Gu Jiao had Gu Chengfeng bring him was placed on the bedside table. The night was very quiet, but his thoughts weren't calm. A certain someone was disobediently running around in his mind. It took him a lot of effort to regain control of his mind. He began to think about the imperial edict. The imperial edict was left behind by the previous emperor. Even the current emperor couldn't disobey it. Although Empress Dowager Zhuang and the Zhuang family had great power, they weren't strong enough to compete with the previous emperor's edict. As a woman of the imperial harem, Empress Dowager Zhuang had done too many things that the secular world wouldn't tolerate. The first thing she bore the brunt of was holding court behind the curtain. The previous emperor's subordinates didn't make things difficult for Empress Dowager Zhuang for two reasons. First, the Empress Dowager did have the means to suppress them. Second, the previous emperor couldn't attend court due to his illness in the last days of his reign. Moreover, the Lu family was ambitious. The previous emperor had no choice but to drive the tiger to chase the wolf. He appointed the virtuous empress as regent. The previous emperor didn't have time to remove the empress's regent before he passed away. Xiao Lulang guessed that the previous emperor might have thought that since he had left the imperial edict for the empress to be buried with him, it didn't matter whether she was removed or not. Unfortunately, the imperial edict was stolen by concubine Jing. The virtuous empress was promoted to the position of regent by the previous emperor. After the new emperor ascended the throne, she continued to hold court behind the curtain, so the previous emperor's subordinates didn't dislike her as much. But as soon as the imperial edict was issued, the previous emperor's subordinates would bite Empress Dowager Zhuang into the imperial mausoleum like hungry wolves. Thus, Gu Jiao was right. The imperial edict couldn't continue to fall into concubine Jing's hands. They had to find a way to steal it back and destroy it. But with the dragon shadow guards around, it would be difficult for them to succeed. The dragon shadow guards. Xiao Lulang narrowed his eyes in the darkness. The next night, Gu Jiao really did come. She brought Xiao Liulong's favorite spicy beef. She skewered the beef with bamboo sticks and put it in a jar. The two of them sat in the room and ate the skewers. "Shall I come again tomorrow?" Gu Jiao asked before she left. Xiao Lulang chuckled quietly. "I can go back after the exam tomorrow. There's no need to come again." Gu Jiao, oh. She really wanted to come. It would be fun to eat skewers with him in the middle of the night. Xiao Lulang was an invigilator and didn't participate in mocking the papers. After the exam, he packed his things and left the examination hall. It wasn't too late. He first went to the Hanlin Academy to take care of the work he had left behind in the past 3 days. Ever since his confrontation with Grand Tutor Zhuang outside the Hanlin Academy, not many people in the Hanlin Academy dared to pick a fight with him. Everyone knew that he was there to invigilate the exam, not play around. Thus, no one dared to assign him any work. It was nothing more than sorting out the classics. He spent the whole afternoon sorting out the scriptures and sent them to Scholar Han. When he came back from Scholar Han's office, he ran into Ning Xuan poking his head out of his office. "What's up?" he walked up and asked. Ning Xuan turned around and said, "I heard that you were back. How was it? Did the invigilation go well?" Xiao Lulang recalled the scene of him eating skewers with a certain someone last night. He couldn't help but laugh. "It went well." Ning Xuan looked at him strangely. You're laughing strangely." Xiao Lulang pressed down the corner of his lips and restrained the smile on his face. He said sternly, "You came to find me just to say hello?" When it came to business, Ning Xuan didn't continue to joke with him. "Well," Ning Xuan scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "I brought my family to the capital. It's just your sister-in-law. Your sister-in-law asked me to bring my friends over. I don't have many friends in the capital, so I wanted to ask if you were free." When he asked this question, he was actually very nervous. Although he and Xiao Lulang were the top 3 in the same subject, their identities and experiences were very different. He was also someone who was favored by the emperor, but the emperor treated him differently than he treated Xiao Lulang. Of course, the main reason was that their abilities were different. He was self-aware and didn't feel any jealousy. It was just that he felt a little inferior. Not only was Xiao Lulang appreciated by the emperor, but he also heard that he had a good relationship with the Empress Dowager. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to suppress Grand Tutor Zhuang. Being friends with such a person, was he trying to climb up the social ladder? Besides, he didn't have much money. The house was rented and his family was quite poor. Thinking of this, Ning Xuan didn't wait for Xiao Liulong's reply and hurriedly refused on behalf of Xiao Lulang. "But the Hanlin Academy has been quite busy lately. Neither of us should have time." "Okay," Xiao Lulang said. "Ha!" Ning Xuan was surprised. Xiao Lulang said, "I'll go back and ask when my wife is free. We'll visit together." Ning Xuan was dumbfounded. Did he just agree? Gu Jiao came to the tribute compound twice to see Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang more or less learned about the current situation from Gu Jiao and decided to go to the palace. "Your Majesty, Xiao Xiuzhuan requests an audience." In the imperial study, Eunuch Wei reported in a low voice. The emperor's hand that was reading the memorials paused. He pressed his tired head and said, "He hasn't been here for a few days." Eunuch Wei hurriedly said, "Xiao Xiuzhuan went to the tribute compound to invigilate the exams for 3 days. The exams for the 6 ministries. The emperor had almost forgotten about this. The exams for the 6 ministries were usually held in June. This year, due to the visit of the Liang Kingdom's envoy, the court exams were delayed by a month, let alone the exams for the 6 ministries. Not all officials participated in this kind of exam. It was only a random test hosted by the Hanlin Academy, but it was also very strict. "Let him in," the emperor said. "Yes." Eunuch Wei went to the door and let him in. Xiao Lulang cupped his hands and bowed. "This humble subject greets your Majesty." The emperor picked up a memorial and said calmly, "How did you find time to come to my place today?" Xiao Lulang cupped his hands and said, "This humble subject has something to report." "What is it?" the emperor asked. Xiao Lulang said seriously, "On the first day of invigilating the exams at the tribute compound, someone put arsenic in this humble subject's dinner." The emperor's brows furrowed. This humble subject originally left behind the evidence, but the weather was too hot, and the evidence was already spoiled. Although he said this, Xiao Lulang still took out a small porcelain bottle from his sleeve. Eunuch Wei went forward and took the small porcelain bottle. He pulled out the cork, and the smell of rotten green onions came to his nose. Eunuch Wei quickly covered his nose. Since it was like this, it was not good to sully the emperor's eyes. The emperor asked, "How do you know it was arsenic?" Xiao Lulang naturally would not say that Gu Jiao had come to the tribute compound. Sneaking into the tribute compound without permission was a capital offense. Even if the emperor would not punish Gu Jiao, why waste the emperor's good impression of Gu Jiao? Xiao Lulang said, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten that Jiao Jiao is a doctor? When she was in the countryside, there were rats at home. Jiao Jiao used arsenic to make some rat medicine. This humble subject even helped her. This was a lie. Gu Jiao would not let Xiao Lulang touch any dangerous items. However, Xiao Lulang had learned the old chancellor's theory of thick black officialdom, so he said it without changing his expression. Xiao Lulang continued, "That person disguised himself as an imperial bodyguard to send me food. I saw that he looked unfamiliar, so he was not the imperial bodyguard from this morning and afternoon. I kept an eye on him, and only then did I realize that the food had been tampered with." The emperor frowned suspiciously. "Who would actually go to the tribute compound to make a move on you?" The tribute compound was heavily guarded, so it was impossible for an ordinary assassin to sneak in, let alone poison Xiao Liulong's food. The emperor stared at Xiao Lulang. "I have not heard of such news from the tribute compound." Xiao Lulang did not avoid the emperor's scrutiny. This humble subject did not say anything. This humble subject did not know who the culprit was, so this humble subject did not dare to make a big deal out of it. This humble subject was afraid that the culprit would act out of desperation. The emperor thought that this was reasonable. He looked at Xiao Lulang and said, "You can go back first. This matter, I will investigate it thoroughly." Xiao Lulang cupped his hands. This humble subject will take his leave. For the sake of caution, after Xiao Lulang left, the emperor called for the imperial physician and asked him to check the chopped green onions. The chopped green onions were picked out from the egg drop soup, so it had already gone bad. However, the imperial physician still found arsenic on it. "Replying to your majesty, it is indeed arsenic," the imperial physician said. The emperor's gaze turned cold. "I know. You can go back." That night, the emperor called the chief imperial bodyguard of the tribute compound and asked him if he had found anyone suspicious in the tribute compound. The chief imperial bodyguard said, "On the first day of the examination, someone seemed to have snuck in and knocked out a guard. He even stripped the guard of his clothes. Unfortunately, this subordinate was incompetent and could not catch him." This matched up with Xiao Liulong's story. The emperor ordered a thorough investigation. Unexpectedly, before the poisoning case of the tribute compound could come to light, something else happened to Xiao Lulang the next day. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty, this is bad. Miss Gu and Xiao Xiuzhua are injured." Eunuch Wei anxiously rushed into the imperial study. The emperor put down the booklet in his hand. "Where are they?" Eunuch Wei said worriedly, "At the medical center. Miracle Hands Hall." This humble subject saw Eunuch Qin rushing out of the palace and asked what was wrong. Only then did Eunuch Qin tell this humble subject that something had happened to Miss Gu and Xiao Xiuzhua. Xiao Lulang was an official that the emperor favored. Gu Jiao was even more important. In the emperor's heart, her weight was no different from his own child. The emperor did not care about approving the booklet. He changed into casual clothes and rushed to the medical center with Eunuch Wei. In the side room of the small courtyard, Gu Jiao was lying unconscious on the bed. Xiao Lulang was guarding by the bed. His left hand was wrapped in gauze and hung around his neck. There were bruises at the corner of his mouth and forehead. This was the first time the emperor had seen the two of them injured in front of him. He was stunned. "What happened?" "Your Majesty." Xiao Lulang stood up and wanted to salute him. However, he looked awkwardly at his bandaged arm and bowed instead. "No need to be so polite." The emperor raised his hand and came to the bed. He looked at Gu Jiao, who was unconscious with her eyes closed. From the corner of his eye, he saw a pile of blood-stained clothes in the basket at the side. His breathing tightened. Xiao Lulang said in low spirits, "Dr. Song has seen her. He said that she lost a lot of blood." The emperor's eyes became cold. His gaze fell on Xiao Liulong's arm. "What happened to you?" Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes and said, "This humble subject is fine. It's just that my arm was dislocated. It has already been reconnected." A dislocated arm was fine? How could a weak scholar withstand this kind of pain? The emperor's face turned ugly. "What's going on? Where did you get injured?" Xiao Lulang said with a pained face, "It was near Chong'an Avenue. This humble subject met an assassin on the way home from Hanlin Academy. Jiao Jiao happened to come to Hanlin Academy to pick me up. We fought with the assassin. Jiao Jiao was no match for him and was seriously injured. Later, Jiao Jiao used a hidden weapon to destroy the assassin's mask. The assassin then escaped. The emperor asked, "Did you see what the assassin looked like?" Xiao Lulang shook his head. It was too chaotic at the time. This humble subject didn't see his facial features clearly. I only remember that he had a tattoo on his face. The emperor hurriedly asked, "What tattoo?" It looks like. Xiao Lulang tried hard to recall and said, "Forget it, this humble subject might have seen wrongly." The emperor frowned and said, "There's no harm in saying it." Xiao Lulang hesitated for a moment and said, "It looks like a tortoise, and also like a snake. Tortoise body and snake tail. Black tortoise. The tattoo of the Dragon Shadow Guard." The Dragon Shadow Guard was a death warrior, but not every death warrior was qualified to become a Dragon Shadow Guard. Back then, the previous emperor bought a large number of death warriors from the Yen Kingdom. When he bought them back, they were already strong enough. However, the previous emperor was not satisfied with their strength. He invited an expert to train the death warriors with all his strength on this basis. In the end, there were more than 100 death warriors, but only a dozen or so Dragon Shadow Guards emerged. Some of the Dragon Shadow Guards died in the mission, and the previous emperor left him the youngest Dragon Shadow Guards. When he first saw them, he was shocked by the black tortoise tattoo on their faces. It was said that the previous emperor had it tattooed to distinguish the Dragon Shadow Guards from ordinary death warriors. No one else in the world had such a tattoo. The emperor's mood instantly became complicated. "Are you sure you didn't see wrongly?" Xiao Lulang thought for a moment. This humble subject is not sure. This humble subject only took a quick glance at the time. This humble subject might have seen wrongly. The emperor closed his eyes. He must have seen wrongly. The Dragon Shadow Guards were now in the hands of Consort Jing's mother. How could she have sent someone to assassinate Xiao Lulang? Although she didn't want to be close to Empress Dowager Zhuang's faction, strictly speaking, Xiao Lulang wasn't part of Empress Dowager Zhuang's faction. Xiao Lulang was a subject that she had personally promoted. He was the son of Heaven's disciple and one of her people. Consort Jing had no reason to deal with Xiao Lulang. The emperor waited in the room for a while longer. Halfway through, Dr. Song came over to change Gu Jiao's medicine, but Gu Jiao didn't wake up. The emperor watched as basins of blood were brought out from behind the screen. He couldn't bear to continue watching. On the way back to the palace, he didn't say a word. "Your Majesty." Eunuch Wei wanted to remind him that they had arrived at the palace. However, the emperor suddenly sighed. Consort Jing's mother wouldn't do that, right? Ah. Eunuch Wei was startled. What was going on? Did His Majesty suspect that the person who tried to assassinate Xiao Lulang was sent by the imperial concubine? The Dragon Shadow Guards usually wore masks, so Eunuch Wei didn't know that they had tattoos on their faces. It definitely wasn't her. The emperor didn't know if he was talking to Eunuch Wei or himself. How could Eunuch Wei dare to answer? "This is a matter between you and your son. I can't get involved." He remembered how His Majesty and the Empress Dowager seemed to have drifted apart in the same way. It seemed that His Majesty wasn't so close to the Empress Dowager overnight. Gradually, His Majesty began to quarrel with the Empress Dowager, blaming every little thing on the Empress Dowager. Sometimes, Eunuch Wei felt wronged for the Empress Dowager. Every dog has its day, and now it's concubine Jing's turn? "Your Majesty, do you have a disease that will drive your mother to her grave?" Cough. Eunuch Wei covered his mouth before he could open it. The emperor got off the carriage. His thoughts were a bit messy. There were two voices in his head. One was telling him that Xiao Lulang wouldn't lie to him, and the other was telling him that Consort Jing wouldn't betray him. "Who is it?" Eunuch Wei suddenly asked. "What's wrong?" the emperor asked. Eunuch Wei pointed to the end of the imperial garden. "This servant just saw a sneaky figure go that way." Wasn't that the direction of the room? Perhaps someone was in a hurry to go to the toilet. The emperor wouldn't go to see a servant go to the toilet, but for some reason, he felt a bit uneasy. He turned around after taking a step and went in the direction of the room. It was a room, after all, so the emperor didn't really go in. He just watched from a distance. Unexpectedly, he heard a familiar voice. What? You failed again? To think that you're a dragon shadow guard. How can you not even kill a scholar who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken? This was Consort Jing's voice. Consort Jing said that she had failed again. Concubine Jing had even said that he was a scholar without the strength to truss a chicken. He must have heard wrong. The voice continued. Does His Majesty know that you're such a piece of trash? His Majesty didn't give you guys to me to just eat and wait for death. It's just killing a little cripple, not some martial arts expert. Is that all you dragon shadow guards are capable of? If I had known, I would have hired a few Jianghu assassins. They'd be more efficient than you guys. It was impossible for the emperor to lie and say that the voice didn't come from Consort Jing's mother. He only felt a chill rise from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. Digression: when a beauty makes a move, you'll know if it's real or not. Happy Christmas Eve! The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/110990765. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com. Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 385. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The emperor didn't want to believe it at first, but every sentence, every word, and every fact matched up with Xiao Liulong's experience. How hateful! He had such a pure and innocent heart, but in the end, he was betrayed like this. Just listen to what his imperial mother had said. Every single one of her words was like a knife stabbing into his heart. The emperor's heart was bleeding. It felt like someone had fished him out of an ice cave and stabbed him a few more times. He staggered and almost fell. Your Majesty! Eunuch Wei didn't dare to make a sound, and could only reach out to support him. To be honest, he was also scared out of his wits. He never expected that he and the emperor would overhear Concubine Jing's words, nor did he expect the contents to be so explosive. From Concubine Jing's tone, it sounded like she was the one who had sent people to kill Xiao Lulang twice. That made sense. Apart from the legendary Dragon Shadow Guard, who else would have the ability to sneak into the examination compound and cause trouble? Eunuch Wei was mistaken. Although the examination compound was heavily guarded, there were still many experts who could sneak in. But since Concubine Jing admitted that she had failed again, then she must have been the one behind the incident. What was worse was that the conversation inside hadn't stopped. Instead, it was getting more and more shocking. All right, Your Highness, don't be angry. Be careful not to harm your health. It was Granny Kai's voice. It's not the Dragon Shadow Guard's fault. Those people are too cunning. Otherwise, how could His Majesty be bewitched by them? In this servant's opinion, what little divine doctor, what Xiao Zhuangyuan, they were all obtained by bewitching His Majesty. But how could His Majesty be bewitched by them? Did they drug His Majesty as well? It was Concubine Jing's voice. If the emperor was only angry at the beginning, then he was a little confused at this point. What did she mean by drug him as well? Mama Kai's voice continued, You're not the only one who can buy this medicine. Maybe the pharmacist from the Yen Kingdom sold it to someone else. Old concubine Jing's voice rang out. This kind of medicine is extremely rare. It's not something that can be sold just because he says so. Those herbs can't be found in the Zhao nation. Money makes the world go round. Your Highness, you're still underestimating them. You mean? His Majesty values Xiao Lulang and the Gu clan's daughter so much because Xiao Lulang and the Gu clan's daughter also drugged His Majesty? Your Highness, you have personally experienced the effects of the white medicine and the black medicine. Think about how His Majesty reconciled with you after that incident and how he became enemies with the Empress Dowager. Wasn't it all because of these two medicines? The Emperor could not hear what was said after that. His head was buzzing, his vision turned black, and the world spun. When he finally regained consciousness, he found himself sitting on the ground. Eunuch Wei knelt beside him and shook him anxiously. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Your Majesty! The Emperor was drenched in cold sweat. He said woodenly, Imperial Mother, They left. This servant didn't see them come out. They probably left through the back door. Eunuch Wei's eyes were red and his voice was choked with sobs. Your Majesty, you scared this servant to death. Help us up. The Emperor dazedly offered his arm to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei wiped his tears and helped the Emperor up. Your Majesty. The Emperor was like a puppet that had lost its soul. He turned around with a dazed expression. Return to Pure Flower's palace. Not long after the Emperor and Eunuch Wei left, two figures walked out from behind the fake mountain near the guest quarters. Both of them were wearing the clothes of eunuchs, but they were taller than normal eunuchs. One of the eunuchs, Xiao Lulang, spoke up. You changed the lines without thinking. The second eunuch, Gu Chengfeng, curled his lips. When did I? I read the lines you gave me. Xiao Lulang glanced at the script book in Gu Chengfeng's hands and expressionlessly said, Little cripple wasn't written in there. Gu Chengfeng. Cough, I was improvising. The effect was more unique. Xiao Lulang, I'll deduct a bottle of hair growth medicine from you. Gu Chengfeng. This is too much. Did you think it was easy for him to agree to impersonate a female voice? He even had to play two roles for each person. He didn't even relent when that lass told him to imitate a female voice. How could this brat's heart be even blacker than that lass's? No, that lass was truly black-hearted. This brat was completely black-hearted. He looks pure and harmless, but he has more tricks up his sleeve than anyone else. Xiao Lulang calmly said, All right, I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going back to take care of Gu Jiao. Gu Chengfeng exploded. Does she need you to take care of her? It's not like she's really injured. She's still alive and kicking. She can even climb trees to catch sparrows. The Emperor collapsed after returning to Pure Flower's palace. He didn't faint, but rather was too exhausted to support his body. He lay on the spacious dragon bed, his face full of struggle and despair. Some things wouldn't have had this kind of effect if they had been done earlier or later. The timing was just right. The effects of the black medicine on Empress Dowager Zhuang were dissipating, while the effects on Grand Concubine Jing were gradually increasing. Xiao Lulang calculated the extent of the Emperor's acceptance. He cut in from the simplest and most convincing matter, then ended with the most shocking and painful truth. It was as if a knife had sliced open the Emperor's heart, causing his unbearable past to flow out along with his blood. Of course, the Emperor was still the Emperor. Although he wasn't as suspicious as the previous Emperor, he was still the ruler of a country. He wouldn't convict someone with just a few words. Xiao Liulong's words revealed a few very important pieces of information: assassination, shadow dragon guards, drugging, Yen Kingdom's pharmacists. The shadow dragon guards were tools for murder. They didn't have the thoughts of a normal person, so it was impossible to learn the truth from their mouths. However, among so many truths, as long as one was proven, people would believe everything. Summon Marquis Xian Ping, the Emperor said. Your Majesty, Marquis Xian Ping went to Fengdu Mountain to visit Princess Xinyang. Have you forgotten? Eunuch Wei asked. Marquis Xianping was an important official of the court. It wasn't a big deal for him to leave the capital for a day, but he still had to report to the court if he really went too far. We have indeed forgotten. The emperor felt that his brain was getting worse and worse. He pressed down on his aching head and said to Eunuch Wei, "Summon Gu Chao then." "Understood," Eunuch Wei replied. "Wait," the emperor called out. Eunuch Wei bowed. "What other orders do you have, Your Majesty?" The emperor wanted to say something, but stopped himself. He waved his hand. "Forget it. Summon Gu Chao first." "Understood." Eunuch Wei sent 2 palace experts to invite the old marquis over as quickly as possible. The old marquis didn't know why the emperor had summoned him. He thought that the emperor was going to make things difficult for him because of his relationship with Grand Concubine Jing. He swore that he and Grand Concubine Jing had already severed all ties and had no more contact. "We ask you, where in Zhao Kingdom can you find a pharmacist from Yan Kingdom?" This was the emperor's first question. The emperor's mind was in a mess, and he even skipped the basic pleasantries. The old marquis didn't understand why the emperor was asking this, but he still answered truthfully. "There is an underground dojo in the capital, and there is a pharmacist from Yan Kingdom there. Does Your Majesty want to invite a pharmacist?" The emperor said dejectedly, "No need. Go buy 2 kinds of medicine for me, black medicine and white medicine. By the way, what are they used for? Who has bought them before?" "Understood." Strange. What black medicine and white medicine? Despite his doubts, the old marquis still left to carry out the order. Pharmacists from Yan Kingdom had a very high status in the underground dojo, and most people wouldn't be able to see them. It was fortunate that the emperor had asked the old marquis for help. The old marquis returned quickly. "Your Majesty, I didn't manage to buy them. The pharmacist said that these 2 kinds of medicine are used to control people. One makes people feel good about the person who put it in them, while the other makes people feel disgusted. They've already sold them out, and it's not convenient for him to reveal who he sold them to. It's a rule of the trade. However, he did tell me that not many people buy them. First, they're expensive, and second, the ingredients are very hard to come by. He might not be able to gather all of them even after several years. He's only made less than 10 pills this year, and all of them were bought by a customer. 1. Therefore, it was impossible for both parties to have drugged him. It was obvious which party it was. However, the emperor still wanted to give the old concubine one last chance before seeing the medicine. He didn't want to believe that the love he had received all these years was an illusion. The old marquis said, "The pharmacist said that you'll have to wait a few years before you can buy them. Maybe even 10 years. You may leave," the emperor cut him off. The old marquis was startled. Sensing that something was wrong with the emperor's mood, he asked worriedly, "What's wrong, Your Majesty?" The emperor murmured, "I'm fine. Don't tell anyone about this." The old marquis suppressed his doubts and cupped his hands in salute. "Your servant obeys." After the old marquis left, the emperor called over a palace expert and handed him a token. "Go and call a shadow dragon guard over. Don't let anyone find out." "Yes." The expert took the emperor's token and left. The emperor had given the shadow dragon guard to the old concubine to better protect her, but that didn't mean that he was no longer the guard's master. The shadow dragon guard was the first to obey the late emperor, and after the late emperor passed away, they were the first to obey him. His orders were higher than the old concubine's. The shadow dragon guard quickly came over. The emperor asked, "Have you tried to assassinate the young divine doctor?" The shadow dragon guard didn't answer. The emperor laughed at himself. That's right, the shadow dragon guard couldn't answer at all, so he didn't show the guard a portrait of the young divine doctor. It was fine as long as he could carry out orders. The emperor looked at the shadow dragon guard and said coldly, "Bring all the medicine in the nunnery to me." Digression. Secretly adding a new chapter, the latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1109856006. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 386. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. The Emperor didn't know what the so-called black and white medicine looked like, so he had the dragon shadow guards bring all the medicine. He also told them not to alert anyone. The dragon shadow guards were shockingly efficient, and they soon brought all the bottles and jars from concubine Jing's room. While waiting for the medicine, the Emperor was actually thinking about whether there were any flaws in Xiao Liulong's words. Normally, the dragon shadow guards wouldn't have been unable to kill Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao with their martial arts. If concubine Jing had really given them the order to kill the two, they wouldn't have stopped halfway. However, the first order of the dragon shadow guards was to protect the Emperor and never harm him. They would work for concubine Jing, but they wouldn't lose their lives in her mission. Every dragon shadow guard was extremely precious. The late Emperor had passed them down to his son, not because he wanted them to become the sword in his son's hand, but because he wanted them to become the shield that protected his son. Only if they didn't die would their master die. Only then would they give up their lives. They would stop when their lives were in danger, and the breaking of the mask was one of the signals the dragon shadow guards used to determine danger. The Emperor knew this very well, which was why he didn't doubt Xiao Liulong's words. Xiao Lulang was also worried that there would be flaws, so he strictly followed the details of Gu Jiao's assassination attempt. The Emperor looked at the jars and jars on the table and called for the imperial physician to identify them. This is the blood-invigorating pill, this is the golden sore medicine, this is the Jeda wine, this is the qi and blood-replenishing pill. The imperial physician carefully identified the herbs on the table, but he couldn't give an answer even after looking at the 2 bottles of medicine for a long time. "What is it?" the Emperor asked with a frown. The imperial physician put down the white and black jars and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, my medical skills are shallow, and I have never seen these 2 medicines before." The Emperor had a vague guess, but he suppressed it. He told himself to be calm and to have concrete evidence. "You may leave," he said to the imperial physician. "Yes," the imperial physician replied. "Wait." The Emperor suddenly stopped him. "What should be said and what should not be said, do you know in your heart?" The imperial physician replied fearfully, "I will keep my mouth shut." Eunuch Wei personally escorted the imperial physician out of Pure Flower's palace. When he returned to the study, he saw that the tea on the Emperor's table had turned cold, so he hurriedly removed it and replaced it with a new one. "Your Majesty!" The Emperor found that the pills in the black bottle and the white bottle looked exactly the same. The smell was also basically the same. He casually took out a white pill and asked Eunuch Wei, "I remember that the fire-clearing pill that the imperial physician prescribed last time looked similar to this. Go and get it." "Yes." Eunuch Wei took the fire-clearing pill. The fire-clearing pill was also a brown pill of the same size, but its gloss was not as good as the black and white pills, and its smell was not very similar. However, if they were mixed together, it would not be a big problem if one did not carefully identify them. The Emperor took out 2 pills from each of the white and black bottles and put the fire-clearing pill inside. The Emperor actually wanted to take a few more pills, but after taking too many, the smell in the bottles would be very difficult to pass off as genuine. The Emperor had the Shadow Dragon Guards put the pills back in the nunnery and summoned the old Marquis to the imperial palace again. This time, he did not plan on having the old Marquis investigate for him. He decided to go himself. "Your Majesty, that kind of place is filled with crooks and honest folk. I'm afraid it will bring shame to your Majesty's status." It's best if your majesty does not go, the old marquis advised. We are not going there to play. He was going there to solve a case. Now that things had progressed to this point, his curiosity had been completely aroused. Of course, he was not going to investigate the truth just to satisfy his curiosity. Rather, it was because of his many years of feelings and sincerity. He wanted to know if he had really invested in the wrong person. The old marquis was a military general and was not skilled in the ways of a civil official. He was not even as eloquent as the emperor, so how could he win against him? After stammering a few more times to no avail, the old marquis could only helplessly agree. The emperor changed into travel clothes and came out. The old marquis looked at him and reminded, "Your Majesty should wear a mask. Don't let people recognize you." The emperor said unconcernedly, "I am the Son of Heaven. Only you court officials have seen me. If I go to that kind of place, how could I be recognized?" The old marquis thought to himself, that might not be the case. In the end, the emperor put on his travel bamboo hat. There was a veil on the outside of the bamboo hat that could also hide his appearance. What he did not expect was that the emperor would be recognized as soon as he entered the underground martial arts field. It was none other than Prince Ning, who had once gone to Zhongnan with the emperor. At that time, the emperor had been wearing this bamboo hat. Prince Ning was not at the level where he could not recognize his own father. He gently closed the window, leaving only a small gap. Puzzled, he asked, "What's the situation? Why did father come to this kind of place? Could it be to catch the crown prince?" The guard asked. The crown prince was not as watertight as Prince Ning. It was reasonable for the emperor to notice. Prince Ning shook his head slightly. "No, father went to find the pharmacist of the Yen kingdom." The guard did not understand. Why did His Majesty go find the pharmacist of the Yen kingdom? Is His Majesty not feeling well? Speaking of this, Prince Ning remembered something. His father met a Taoist priest on the way back to the palace. The Taoist priest said that he could refine the elixir of immortality for his father. In order to achieve immortality, his father was determined not to set foot in the harem for 2 years. He had investigated the Taoist priest. His origin was not good. Just as he was thinking about how to persuade his father to stay away from the Taoist priest, his father suddenly sent the Taoist priest out of the palace. It was as if immortality was just a joke or a whim of his father. Prince Ning did not know that the emperor had venereal disease. Naturally, he could not guess that the emperor sent the Taoist priest away only because he had recovered from his venereal disease and no longer needed the art of immortality. In the end, the emperor did not see the pharmacist of the Yen kingdom. He was 1 step late. The pharmacist of the Yen kingdom had left the city to pick herbs. As for how long he would take to return, it was not set. At least 3 to 5 days, at most 10 days to half a month. The emperor was anxious to find out the truth and could not wait that long. He thought of someone. Gu Jiao pretended to be a patient in the medical hall for a while. Thinking that the emperor would not come again, she removed the bandages on her body and sat in Xiao Sanzi's carriage to return to Jade Water Alley. Just as she stepped into the room, the emperor arrived. She did not care about the half-dried herbs and rushed back to her room. Her movements were too fast. Yao Shi, who was watering the vegetable garden, did not react in time. The emperor entered the courtyard. Yao Shi quickly put down the watering pot and bowed. She did not call him Your Majesty. Instead, she called him Official Chu. The emperor knew that the relationship between the little divine doctor and Marquis Ding and manner was not good, so he let the old marquis return first. He came alone and only brought eunuch Wei. "Is Jiao Jiao here?" he asked. "Jiao Jiao." Yao Shi did not know that the young couple had conspired to trick the emperor. Just as she was about to say that Jiao Jiao was in the room, Xiao Lulang leisurely strolled over from the neighboring courtyard. His neck and arms were wrapped in bandages. "She is here. Official Chu, please follow me." Outside the palace, Xiao Lulang also used his status as Official Chu to address the emperor. Yao Shi looked at Xiao Liulang's arm and was shocked. "Lulang, you?" Xiao Lulang stared at her. "I am fine. Mother, do not worry." Yao She froze for a moment before immediately understanding. She lowered her eyes and calmly said, "I will go see if the pastries are ready. You take care of official Chu." Saying this, she turned and went to the kitchen. Xiao Lulang brought the emperor to the central room and personally poured a cup of tea for the emperor. This place was far from the door. Xiao Lulang lowered his voice and changed his words. "Did your majesty come to visit Jiao Jiao?" The emperor asked. "We just went to the medical hall. The shopkeeper said that she had returned. Is she better?" Xiao Liulong's expression did not change as he said, "She was awake for a while, but she did not hold on for long. After she returned home, she fell asleep again." The emperor frowned. Xiao Lulang then said, "Did your majesty come here to visit Jiao Jiao?" The emperor sighed. "I came to visit her. I also have something I want to ask her." Xiao Lulang looked at the emperor. "I don't know. What is it?" The emperor frowned and said, "There is a type of medicine that the imperial doctors cannot recognize. We want to see her. Since she is still unconscious, we will come back another day." Xiao Lulang said, "She is awake." Emperor. Since Xiao Lulang said that Gu Jiao was awake, then Gu Jiao really slowly woke up. She lay on the bed and covered her mouth. Her face was full of pain and hurt. Xiao Lulang entered the room to take a look at her. It was fortunate that he saw her. Otherwise, with her awkward acting skills, she would be exposed at any moment. "Your Majesty." Xiao Lulang walked out and coughed lightly. He said to the emperor, "She is a little weak. Why don't this subject go in and ask her?" The emperor thought that Gu Jiao's injured body was wrapped in bandages and it was really inconvenient for her to see people. So, he asked Eunuch Wei to take out 2 medicine bottles that he carried with him and handed them to Xiao Lulang. "Go and ask Jiao Jiao what medicine is in these bottles." After a pause, he asked Eunuch Wei, "Which is the medicine in the white bottle and which is the medicine in the black bottle?" "Ah. This. Eunuch Wei looked embarrassed. This subject remembered it on the way here. Now, suddenly, I forgot. This was a pair of jade bottles. The patterns on the bottles were different. Eunuch Wei thought that he remembered, but in the end, he overestimated his brain. The emperor waved his hand. "Forget it. The little godly doctor is a doctor. He should be able to tell." Reality proved that the emperor also overestimated people. Gu Jiao could indeed smell the slight difference in the smell of the 2 pills. She knew that the 2 pills were different and would not be mixed in the same bottle. But as for which one was the white medicine and which one was the black medicine, she could not remember. Life was like a play. Everything depended on her mouth. Xiao Lulang sat in the east room for a while and took out the 2 bottles of medicine. He pointed at the 2 bottles and said, "Your Majesty, these 2 pills are not ordinary drugs. The bottle on the left is the white medicine and the bottle on the right is the black medicine. They are a long-lost knockout drug. Originally, it came from the Tang sect. It is said that the recipe was stolen and gradually spread among the 6 nations. But because the ingredients are extremely rare and the steps are very complicated, only the pharmacists of the Yan Kingdom can make it." Gu Chao had indeed inquired about these 2 drugs from a pharmacist of the Yan Kingdom. The emperor's expression darkened. He felt that he was close to the truth. Then, "What kind of knockout drug is it?" Xiao Lulang said, "Jiao Jiao said that it is a drug that can confuse people's minds. The white medicine makes people have a good impression of it and the black medicine makes people feel disgusted." The emperor, "Is it the person who drugged it?" Xiao Lulang, "It is not necessarily the person who drugged it. It is the person who saw it when the drug took effect." The emperor, "How long after the drug takes effect?" Xiao Lulang, "Very soon." This wasn't completely consistent with what Gu Chao had inquired about, but it wasn't conflicting either. If the drug took effect quickly, then it was very likely that the person he saw was the person who drugged it. As the truth deepened, the emperor felt that he was holding his breath. It took a lot of effort for him to break through the blockage in his throat. What is it like when the drug takes effect? This varies from person to person. Some people don't even have a reaction. This was Xiao Liulong's own speculation. Back then, Madame Nan hadn't told Gu Jiao in such detail, but Xiao Lulang felt that if the emperor had a strong reaction after taking the drug, he would have noticed it himself. After taking this kind of knockout drug, the most it would do was make people sleepy, but it wouldn't get any stronger. The emperor clenched his fingers and closed his eyes. How long can the drug last? If it didn't last long, then his kindness to concubine Jing and his hatred of Empress Dowager Zhuang might have nothing to do with them. Xiao Lulang shattered his hopes with one sentence. If there is a catalyst, it can last for many years. The emperor was startled. Catalyst? Xiao Lulang said, it's a kind of powder with a floral scent. It can be made into calming incense or dried flowers and put into a brocade pouch. Calming incense. He had been using the calming incense that concubine Jing had given him all these years. Go, bring the calming incense that concubine Jing sent over to me. Your Majesty, the calming incense is useless. This servant has gotten rid of it, Eunuch Wei said awkwardly. His eyes lit up as he thought of something. A while ago, Granny Kai gave this servant a money pouch. The smell was a bit similar to calming incense. Actually, it wasn't. But people had the habit of associating things, so the more he thought about it, the more he believed it. Madame Nan had broken that pouch before, and Gu Jiao had sewn it back up for Eunuch Wei. The dried flowers inside hadn't been touched. He took the money pouch off. Xiao Lulang already knew what was going on with the money pouch, but he still took it into the eastern room and went through the motions. When he came out, he told the truth. Your Majesty, it contains the catalyst. Forgive me for asking, but why does Your Majesty have these things? Could it be that Your Majesty... The Emperor interrupted him. There are some things that you don't need to ask. Yes, Your Majesty. Xiao Lulang cupped his hands. The truth had been traced to this point. No matter how stupid the Emperor was, he would understand what was going on. His heart received an unprecedented blow. He even felt that his faith had collapsed overnight. He stood up with the help of a chair, but his legs shook and he fell back down. Your Majesty! Eunuch Wei was shocked. I'm fine. The Emperor waved his hand in panic, stopping Eunuch Wei from helping him up. He used all his strength to stand up shakily. His hands were shaking violently, and he looked like a withered leaf shivering in the cold wind. It was a miserable sight. Eunuch Wei's eyes were red. Your Majesty. The Emperor walked forward step by step. You don't need to help me, I can walk. I'm fine. As soon as he finished speaking, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes turned black, and he fell to the ground unconscious. When the Emperor woke up, he found himself lying in his grey tant's room. It was a familiar environment with simple furnishings, but his state of mind was no longer the same as before. Your Majesty, you're awake? It was the old Chancellor's voice. The Emperor suddenly became much older. He turned to look at the old Chancellor who was guarding by the bed, and said weakly, Huaxian. Yes, Your Majesty. The old Chancellor took a step forward. Eunuch Wei is boiling medicine in the kitchen. How do you feel, Your Majesty? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I'll call Jiao Jiao over. The Emperor moved his gaze away weakly and looked at the monotonous canopy. No need to call her, I'm fine. The old Chancellor sighed. Your Majesty, if you have any troubles, you can tell me. Your Majesty, I'll try my best to share your worries and solve your problems. The old Chancellor had learned everything from Xiao Lulang just now. On one hand, he felt that Xiao Lulang was too bold for daring to do such a thing. On the other hand, he was quite proud that his son was quite promising. His plan was meticulous, his deployment was comprehensive, and he was bold but careful. The main thing was that his heart was black enough. He was indeed his disciple. But at the same time, he also felt sorry for the Emperor. After being schemed by his mother for so many years, the Emperor must be in pain in his heart. The truth was cruel, but if he didn't do so, he wouldn't be able to save Zhuang Jin's. Therefore, it was better for the Emperor to suffer a few stabs in his heart. The old chancellor decisively gave up the relationship between the monarch and his minister and changed the topic to Zhuang Jin's. Your Majesty, are you going to rest in Bisui Alley or go back to the palace? There will be Empress Dowager tomorrow morning, so you don't have to worry so much. When Empress Dowager Zhuang was mentioned, the emperor was absent-minded for a moment. Hua Xian. The old chancellor cupped his hands and said, I'm here. The emperor looked at the beam that was shrouded in the shadows and laughed at himself. He said, Do you think she hates me? Even I don't need to. It can be seen that her mood is so complicated that she can't control it. The old chancellor continued to poke in, Your Majesty, are you talking about Empress Dowager? She hates you, right? After all, Your Majesty has hated her for so many years. You even caused her to be infected with leprosy and almost took her life. If I were her. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I've misspoken. No, you can continue. Forget it. There's no point in talking about this now. Your Majesty and Empress Dowager's relationship can't be reconciled. Can't be reconciled. Not knowing why, when the emperor heard these words, his heart suddenly felt uncomfortable. The emperor didn't reveal to Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao that he was drugged. The old chancellor also pretended that he didn't know. He sighed and said, If Your Majesty really can't tolerate Empress Dowager, please bear with it. Empress Dowager is only a few years younger than me. She's already old and doesn't have many years left to live. Your Majesty can bear with it. The emperor felt even more uncomfortable in his heart. When he thought that Empress Dowager Zhuang would lie in the cold coffin like the former emperor, he even stopped breathing. He didn't know what was wrong with him. In fact, putting aside the effect of the drug, he and Empress Dowager Zhuang were definitely not on good terms. Even if he wasn't drugged to hate her, he would still hope that she would quickly step down, hand over the power of the court, and leave his throne room as soon as possible. But why did he still feel uncomfortable? The old chancellor didn't hesitate to poke the knife. He said, I'm on Your Majesty's side. If Your Majesty really can't tolerate Empress Dowager Zhuang, just let the Shadow Dragon Guards kill her. The emperor's face changed. How can I? The old chancellor seemed to not hear this sentence and continued, Speaking of which, it's also old concubine Jing's fault that she was too impulsive. The former emperor clearly left an imperial edict for the virtuous Empress Dowager to be buried with him. If she didn't steal it and burn it, Your Majesty wouldn't be in so much trouble. There would be no Empress Dowager Zhuang in the world. That woke him up from his dream. That was right. The former emperor had left an imperial edict for Empress Dowager Zhuang to be buried with him. One day, concubine Jing was taking care of the former emperor and happened to find the imperial edict. She risked her life to steal it. In order not to be discovered, she immediately found a secluded corner and burned the imperial edict. During that time, the relationship between him and Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't very harmonious. They had several arguments over the former emperor's treatment plan. Concubine Jing said that the doctor from the Yen Kingdom was very good. If the emperor didn't have a craniotomy, he wouldn't be able to live. Why not fight to the death? Now that he thought about it, craniotomy was such a terrible thing. Why did he feel that old concubine Jing's words made sense at that time? When Empress Dowager Zhuang opposed the craniotomy, he felt that Empress Dowager Zhuang deliberately didn't give the former emperor the last hope of recovery. How could he? The emperor pulled his thoughts back and focused his attention on the imperial edict. In fact, he had never seen the imperial edict. Everything was just concubine Jing's side of the story. So, did it really exist? If it did concubine Jing really burn it? He didn't know what she was thinking before, but now that the truth was out, how could she let go of a chance to execute Empress Dowager Zhuang? There must be something in between that he didn't know. The night was like water. After the hour of the evening, the palace gradually quieted down. The majestic throne room was like a sleeping lion, quietly hibernating under the curtain of the night. The emperor didn't turn over his tablet today, so the concubines and concubines gave up on waiting and closed the palace doors with sighs. In the secluded nunnery, old concubine Jing had just finished reciting a Buddhist scripture. The cool night fell on her thin figure, casting a layer of silent light on it. Grand Imperial Concubine, it's time to rest, Granny Kai reminded her. Old concubine Jing held the wooden bell in her hand and asked softly, "What time is it?" Granny Kai said, "It's just past the hour of the evening." "Then it's the hour of the evening." Old concubine Jing put the bell back on the table. "His Majesty probably won't come today." Granny Kai sighed. His Majesty hadn't paid his respects to old concubine Jing for a few days. Granny Kai said earnestly, "Your Majesty, His Majesty is—" Old concubine Jing nodded faintly. "I understand. I was muddle-headed and gave him the wrong medicine." Granny Kai looked at old concubine Jing with a complicated expression. "Your Majesty," old concubine Jing said faintly, "go to sleep." "Yes." Just as Granny Kai helped old concubine Jing up, Hui An's cry came from outside. "Your Majesty!" Old concubine Jing's dim eyes suddenly brightened, and she tightened her grip on Granny Kai. In the tea room, old concubine Jing and the Emperor sat facing each other on their respective cushions. There was a long table between them, on which there was a pot of freshly brewed flower tea and some vegetarian snacks from the nunnery. "Have some tea." Old concubine Jing placed a cup of flower tea in front of the Emperor. The Emperor looked at the cup of tea and didn't reach out to take it. Instead, his gaze fell on the exquisite vegetarian snacks. "Does Mother really like vegetarian food?" Old concubine Jing looked at him in confusion. Granny Kai walked out quietly and said to the few little nuns outside the door, "You all go and have a rest. We don't need you here." The nuns returned to their respective rooms. Granny Kai closed the door for the two and waited quietly in the corridor. Old concubine Jing poured herself a cup of scented tea as well. Despite her age, she picked up the cup with her well-maintained fingers and smiled nonchalantly. "Your Majesty, are you asking me if I'm a vegetarian? I wasn't used to it at first, but after so many years, I should be used to it no matter how much I hate it." "So Mother hates going to the nunnery?" The Emperor caught on to the meaning behind her words. Old concubine Jing was startled. She put down the cup and said, "That's not what I meant. I was just making an example. I don't hate vegetarian food. But I don't like it either," the Emperor said. Old concubine Jing frowned and looked at the Emperor. "Did your Majesty come so late just to bicker with me?" The Emperor smiled wryly. "All right, I'll change the question." With that, he looked into old concubine Jing's eyes. "Mother, do you really think of me as your own son?" "Your Majesty's words are getting weirder and weirder." "What do you mean by, do I really think of you as my own son?" "I raised you and brought you to my palace not long after you were born. Although I didn't give birth to you, you're the same as Ning and in my heart. You're both my flesh and blood." Speaking of this, Imperial Mother reminded us of something. When I was about to be born, Mother was about to give birth as well. In the end, she gave birth to a stillborn child, which angered the late Emperor. If it wasn't for that, I would have been Mother's child, right? Old concubine Jing's heart skipped a beat. "You?" The Emperor didn't let go of the guilt that flashed through old concubine Jing's eyes. He clenched his fists under his wide sleeves. "So it was you who gave birth to a stillborn child?" Yes, if the Empress hadn't given birth to a stillborn child, how could a concubine raise a prince? "I should have been raised under Mother's name." Old concubine Jing's clenched fists loosened bit by bit. She picked up her teacup and took a sip. "I had just entered the palace not long ago and hadn't made friends with the Empress yet. I didn't have the means to make her give birth to a stillborn child. It was concubine Lu who did it, whether you believe it or not." The Emperor said seriously, "Of course I don't believe it. It's just that so many years have passed. Concubine Lu is dead, and the palace maid who delivered Mother's child is dead as well. There's nothing left to find out." Old concubine Jing sneered. "So your Majesty is here to force me to confess under torture?" The Emperor found this side of old concubine Jing unfamiliar. "Mother, you weren't like this in the past." Old concubine Jing sneered. "My son didn't abandon me in the past. Of course I didn't have to be like this." So it's my fault. The Emperor's Adam's apple moved with difficulty. Mother, don't you know better than anyone why I'm like this? Before old concubine Jing could ask why she knew, the Emperor took out 2 medicine bottles and poured out the pills on the table. Old concubine Jing's expression changed as she held her breath. The Emperor wasn't here to confront old concubine Jing, so there was no need for him to get a definite confession from her. He was only here to tell her that he knew. He knew everything. The feelings they had built up over the years weren't fake. Even with the effects of the black medicine, he was still heartbroken at this moment. Mother, there's no need to explain. Don't explain. I won't believe a word you say in the future. I won't come to the nunnery again. Mother, you're on your own now. The Emperor endured the pain in his throat as he stood up and walked out. He had just opened the door when he suddenly paused and turned back with a choked voice. The Dragon Shadow Guard. I don't think Mother needs it anymore. I'll take it back from today onwards. Old concubine Jing clenched her fists tightly and trembled all over. Her eyes were watery, but she couldn't say a single word. Your Majesty! Granny Kai knelt down and begged. The Emperor left without looking back. Old concubine Jing's blood and qi roiled as she flew into a rage out of humiliation. She raised her hand and swept all the desserts and tea set onto the floor. Your Highness! Granny Kai rushed into the room with a pale face. Old concubine Jing stood up and stepped on a broken piece of porcelain. Blood flowed down the teacup and onto the floor. Granny Kai hurriedly said, Your Highness! You're injured. Quickly lift your leg and let this servant take a look. Old concubine Jing ignored Granny Kai and the pain in her foot. She stepped on the piece of porcelain that had sunk deep into her foot and ran back to her room in a sorry state. She opened the mechanism, found the secret compartment under the bed, and took out the box from the secret compartment. The black and white medicine had been stored separately from the imperial edict. She still had one last trump card. If she were to die, she would drag Zhuang Jins down with her. If she couldn't live well, Zhuang Jins wouldn't be able to live either. Mother, are you looking for this? A voice suddenly came from the door. Old concubine Jing opened the box and looked at the empty box before turning to look at the imperial edict in the Emperor's hand. The Emperor's heart was in pain, but his eyes were cold and despairing. He looked at old concubine Jing, who was in such a sorry state, with reddened eyes. Then, he turned and left with the imperial edict. Don't. Old concubine Jing threw herself at the Emperor. But before she could take a step, she was blocked by the Dragon Shadow Guards who descended from the sky. Digression. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428226/1109644486. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 387. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Even if concubine Jing suddenly became a martial arts expert, the Emperor wouldn't be surprised at all. A person's heart died in an instant. Or perhaps his heart had been slowly dying a long time ago, but he refused to believe it. He was waiting for the so-called evidence, waiting for them to return to the past. Reality proved that the past was nothing more than a bubble. With the Dragon Shadow Guards present, no matter how powerful an expert was, they wouldn't be able to charge over. Concubine Jing's shouts and roars came from behind him. Her voice sounded a bit hoarse, but there were also soft sobs and loud sobs. The emperor didn't turn around even once. The heavens didn't seem to be cooperating with his current mood and didn't give him a sudden storm. The night was frighteningly quiet. He returned to Pure Flower's palace. It was already late at night. Apart from the eunuchs on night duty, everyone else had returned to their servants' rooms to rest. Eunuch Wei walked in front of the emperor with a lantern. He probably understood that the emperor wasn't in a good mood, so he didn't dare say anything along the way. But now that the emperor was about to sleep, he mustered up his courage and asked, "This servant will go prepare some water?" The emperor said with a numb expression, "We will go to the study to read some memorials." He couldn't sleep. Yes. Eunuch Wei didn't try to persuade him. After sending the emperor to the study, he left and instructed the eunuch to go to the imperial kitchen and make some porridge and snacks. The emperor had been sitting in the study a bit too often recently. Eunuch Wei looked at the dark face that looked like it had been struck by lightning and didn't even dare to serve tea. Eunuch Wei sighed as he stood guard at the door. What's going on? How did Concubine Jing get torn to shreds in just one day? He felt like something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. His Majesty is so pitiful. His Majesty is so pitiful. His Majesty. What His Majesty? He was a eunuch, yet he pitied the emperor. Was he too bored to do anything? Eunuch Wei held onto his horsetail whisk and quietly stood guard outside the door. The emperor was still immersed in the shock brought by the series of truths. Whether it was the nature of old Concubine Jing, the previous emperor's imperial edict, or the Empress Dowager's grievances, he was unable to calm down for a long time. What he should be most upset about was the disillusionment between him and Grand Concubine Jing, but for some reason, it didn't seem as bad as he had imagined. He was angry that he had been fooled, and he was angry that he had been schemed against. Compared to his mother's disillusionment in his heart, the previous emperor's imperial edict was more difficult for him to let go. He didn't understand what kind of state of mind the late emperor had been in to leave behind an imperial edict that would bury the virtuous empress and concubine Jing at the same time. He had read the contents of the edict carefully. Although they were buried together, only Xiande Empress and Xiande shared the same coffin and were buried together in the imperial mausoleum. It could be said that they were born in the same quilt and died in the same hole. Concubine Jing was buried in the imperial mausoleum. As Concubine Jing, she probably felt more resentment than anything else. She was resentful that even if she were to die, she would die outside of the two of them, like a third person who could never get in between them. He could more or less guess Mother Jing's jealousy and unwillingness. He couldn't guess what Xiande was thinking. Could it be that Xiande had long realized that something was wrong with Mother Jing and guessed that she would try to sow discord between him and the Empress Dowager? For the sake of the stability of the court, Xiande decided to go all the way and take both women to the grave? Or perhaps Xiande really did want Xiande Empress to go to the Yellow Springs with him and share a bowl of Meng Po's soup on the Bridge of Helplessness so that they could still be husband and wife in the next life. The emperor pinched his aching glabella. He suddenly realized that he didn't understand Xiande at all. This imperial edict couldn't be left alive. To avoid any more complications, he threw it into the brazier and burned it. As the flames danced, Empress Dowager Zhuang's face inexplicably flashed through his mind. It wasn't this face that had been through the vicissitudes of life, but rather the face that had been the most beautiful in the imperial harem when she was young. As the legitimate daughter of the Zhuang clan, her first smile was enough to topple cities, and her second smile was enough to topple countries. There were 3,000 beauties in the imperial harem, but none of them could compare to her beauty. He still remembered the first time he had walked up to her and looked at her seriously. His face had immediately turned red. When he returned, he had told Mother Jing that his mother was really beautiful. Was it that time that the seed of jealousy had been planted in Mother Jing's heart? The emperor closed his eyes in self-reproach. Why did you hurt Mother Jing? Why didn't you save father? What intentions did you have? You didn't even let off the people closest to you in order to monopolize power. You're a vicious woman. When the Lu clan plotted against you, it was Mother Jing who took a sword for you and almost lost her life. When Xiande wanted you to be buried with him, It was Mother Jing who risked her life to steal the imperial edict. Mother Jing treated you with all her heart, but in the end, you couldn't even bear to give her a single Tianshan snow lotus. He had forgotten that the Tianshan snow lotus had already been used in his medicine. It wasn't that Mother didn't want to give it to him, but that she couldn't. However, she hadn't explained a single thing. She had only looked at him deeply before turning to leave. What kind of grievances and sadness had she left with at that time? He didn't know. He didn't know at all. It was a dark and windy night. Jadewater Alley had also sunk into silence. However, the lights in Gu Jiao's room suddenly lit up. That's right, Gu Jiao had been pretending to be asleep. She had waited until everyone had fallen asleep before sneaking out of her bed. The day was still hot, but the night was very cool. Gu Jiao tiptoed out of her room in a thin set of pajamas. She sneakily went to the kennel in the backyard and took Little 8 out of the kennel when it wasn't paying attention. Little 8 was dumbfounded. Gu Jiao walked back with Little 8 in her arms. She thought that she had hidden herself well, but little did she know that she was blocked by Xiao Lulang as soon as she arrived at the central room. Gu Jiao blinked. It's so late. You're still awake? Xiao Lulang was also wearing pajamas. She asked again, You woke up in the middle of the night? Xiao Lulang. Thank you. My kidneys are fine. Xiao Lulang looked at Little 8 in her arms and asked, Why are you hugging a dog in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Just for fun? Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang, haha. Xiao Lulang stared at Gu Jiao without blinking. He had the ability to not get angry and not get to the bottom of things, but also make people unable to keep secrets. Gu Jiao knew that if she didn't explain clearly, he wouldn't go back to sleep obediently. That was strange. Had he been pretending to be asleep all this time? Waiting to catch her in the middle of the night? Fine. Gu Jiao finally decided to confess. Who asked him to be her husband? She couldn't bear to beat him until he fainted. I want to test the medicine, Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang didn't look too surprised. You guessed it. Gu Jiao blinked and asked him. Xiao Lulang said calmly, I saw you secretly changing the medicine from His Majesty. He really didn't know where she learned this skill from. She was too fast. If he hadn't been paying attention, he wouldn't have noticed. Gu Jiao pursed her lips. No wonder you stopped me in the middle of the night. You want to use Little 8 to test the medicine? Xiao Lulang looked at the puppy in her arms and asked. Gu Jiao shook her head. No, I want to test it myself. I want to know the effects of the black and white medicine and why it can confuse people's minds. Xiao Liulong's mouth twitched. So you brought Little 8 here? He asked. Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. I don't know which one is the black medicine and which one is the white medicine. It doesn't matter if it's Little 8. It was fine if she got close to Little 8, but if she really hated it, Little 8 was Gu Yan's puppy. For Gu Yan's sake, she wouldn't do anything to Little 8. Xiao Lulang imagined the scene of her hugging Little 8 and kissing him left and right. He immediately felt unwell. No. He flatly refused. Gu Jiao thought for a moment. Then, Little 9. Falcon wasn't bad either. I'll test the medicine. Xiao Lulang looked at her and said, No, you're not a doctor. Gu Jiao firmly refused to let him test the medicine himself. She had received medical training in the organization. He didn't have any experience in this area, so he might not be able to handle it physically and mentally. Both of them were stubborn. They treated each other with respect, but when it came to conflict, neither of them would give in. For example, Gu Jiao forced him to go through rehabilitation, and Xiao Lulang forced her to practice calligraphy. In the end, Xiao Lulang took a step back. Fine, you test the medicine. But I have a condition. Half an hour later, the two of them sat in the east room under the dim light of the oil lamp. Gu Jiao had 2 identical pills in front of her. Because she didn't know which one was the black medicine and which one was the white medicine, she could only try her luck. Think carefully. If I take the black medicine, I'll hate you. Gu Jiao threatened. Okay. Xiao Lulang nodded and gently held her hand under the table. Gu Jiao randomly picked one and put it in her mouth. This medicine didn't have much taste. Instead, it had a licorice fragrance. Xiao Lulang stared at her without blinking. He didn't want to miss the slightest change in her eyes. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't nervous. If, and he meant if, she really took the black medicine, then he would take the white medicine. Gu Jiao's body was probably stronger than an emperor's. It took a full 15 minutes for the medicine to take effect. She didn't know what kind of medicine she took, but she was very sleepy. Before she fell asleep, she looked at the handsome face so close to her and suddenly held his hand. She held his hand tightly, as if she was going to lose him. Xiao Liulong's throat moved with difficulty. Then, Gu Jiao fell asleep on the table. She had a long dream. In the dream, she saw all the places she wanted to go and all the things she liked. The person she saw before she fell asleep was also in her dream. She entered the dream in a sober state. This was a skill she had learned from training in the organization in her previous life. She had been injected with countless types of hallucinogens and had been required to stay awake. Of course, she wasn't able to resist such a strong drug from the beginning. But every time her body and mind were destroyed, she would learn a bit more. She understood what this drug was. It was indeed a knockout drug. It had components of the devil's snare. The effect was similar to the hallucinogens she had been injected with in her previous life. Some hallucinogens made people feel good, while others made people experience torment and fear. The face she saw when the knockout drug took effect would constantly flash in her dream. People who hadn't undergone special training wouldn't remember their dream after they woke up, but the feelings in the dream would remain in their subconscious. If she saw the face in the dream again, it would evoke the feelings in her subconscious. Gu Jiao could completely remove this feeling, but normal people couldn't. That was why the drug took effect. Gu Jiao seriously suspected that these two drugs weren't called black medicine and white medicine. They should have more specific names, but it wasn't convenient for Shen Yang to say. When Gu Jiao woke up, she was leaning in Xiao Liulong's arms. She wasn't sure if she had leaned in herself or if Xiao Lulang had carried her there. Oh, it was quite comfortable. You're awake, Xiao Lulang said in a hoarse voice. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Don't be fooled by his calm appearance. Who knew what kind of torment he had experienced in his heart just now? I took black medicine, Gu Jiao said coldly. I had a nightmare. I'll think of that nightmare when I see you in the future. From now on, I'm afraid I'll hate you. Oh, Xiao Lulang said calmly. Then take your hand out of my shirt first. A certain someone's hand froze in the middle of touching his chest. This drug was effective on normal people, but it had no effect on a top-secret agent like Gu Jiao, who could drink hallucinogens like water. However, it didn't seem to need any additional effects. Chest kill, waist kill, stomach kill, leg kill, and face kill. Gu Jiao felt that her husband's 5 kills were more powerful than any drug. Xiao Lulang could actually tell that this girl had taken white medicine, but it didn't seem to have any effect on her. Although it was strange, he understood that all drugs differed from person to person. Although he was looking forward to seeing the effects of the white medicine, he couldn't be too greedy. She was already very lucky that she hadn't taken the wrong black medicine. Speaking of which, her luck had always been good. Xiao Lulang couldn't help but smile. Gu Jiao had already sat up straight and was tugging at her little ears. He suddenly leaned towards her, his tall figure enveloping her with his aura. Gu Jiao stared at him in a daze. She saw his slender fingers gently pinch her chin and kiss the corner of her lips lightly. It was very quick and light, but it imprinted an incomparably hot breath. Gu Jiao touched the corner of her lips that had been kissed by him. Why did you kiss me? A reward. His eyes were deep as he sat back in his chair. I didn't choose the wrong medicine. Very good. Oh. Gu Jiao's eyes turned. That's the only reward? Xiao Lulang saw her unsatisfied expression and chuckled. What else do you want? Gu Jiao said confidently, I'm watching you bathe. Xiao Lulang, digression Jiao Jiao, I want to see my 5 drugs. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-82642-826/11093565. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 388. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. On the other side, the emperor spent an incomparably conflicted night. Eunuch Wei did not dare to rush him. Only when it was close to morning court did Eunuch Wei muster the courage to walk into the study and say in a small voice, "Your Majesty, it's time for morning court." Mem. The emperor's voice was deep as he responded. Eunuch Wei did not dare to guess what kind of struggle he had experienced that night. He only looked straight ahead and followed behind the emperor. He helped the emperor wash and change his clothes into the dragon robe. Because he had not slept the entire night, 2 large dark circles hung on the emperor's face. Even from so far away, the officials in the front row still noticed it. The Minister of Revenue held the ceremonial tablet and glanced at Grand Tutor Zhuang beside him. He lowered his voice and said, "What's wrong with your Majesty?" Grand Tutor Zhuang said in a low voice, "Perhaps he's tired from state affairs." "Is it because of the border?" the Minister of Revenue asked. Prince Ning and Tang Ming went to suppress bandits and found that the Chen border was about to make trouble. On the surface, the Chen king wanted to confer a new empress to attract the attention of the other countries, but who could say for sure that the Chen would not secretly send troops to Zhao? Without waiting for Grand Tutor Zhuang to reply, the Minister of Revenue clicked his tongue and said, "The Chen hostage is still in Zhao. They can't wait to send troops. Do they not care about the Chen hostage's life?" Grand Tutor Zhuang thought, when Marquis Xianping led troops to attack Chen, wasn't Prince An also a hostage in Chen? Thinking about it this way, did the Emperor and Marquis Xianping not care about Prince An's life? However, Marquis Xianping fought that battle too beautifully. Not only did he send people ahead of time to protect Prince An so that he did not fall into Chen's hands and become a hostage on the battlefield, but he also directly attacked the enemy and almost overturned the Chen palace. He wondered if the Chen nation had such an intelligent and courageous general. There was nothing special about today's morning court, except that one of Grand Tutor Zhuang's imperial censors impeached a trusted official of the emperor. The reason was that the official went to a brothel and disgraced his official position. To be honest, the crime of visiting a brothel was very difficult to bring down. Only the imperial censors, who disliked everything, would do this. Everyone thought that the emperor would not accept it. Who knew that with a wave of his hand, the emperor ordered the minister of the Supreme Court to deal with this person. The ministers were all stunned. This works too? Your Majesty! The Minister of Works stepped forward. Even an outsider like him couldn't stand it. How could someone be impeached for visiting a brothel? If that was the case, how many times should Marquis Xianping have been stripped of his black hat? This person was disrespectful to the Empress Dowager and dared to criticize the Empress Dowager in front of me. Such a rebellious official should be punished severely. We have already made up our mind, so there is no need for further discussion. After the emperor finished speaking, he turned his head and glanced at Empress Dowager Zhuang behind the curtain. His eyes were a little excited, as if he was saying, "Praise me, praise me." Empress Dowager Zhuang ignored him. After the court, the emperor caught up with Empress Dowager Zhuang's phoenix carriage. Empress Dowager Zhuang had the spirit of sacrificing 5 candied plums. She patiently got out of the Phoenix sedan and looked at him with a pleasant expression. "What does the Emperor want from me?" The Emperor said, "I have something to say to Mother alone." In the past, he had referred to himself as either I or son, with a hint of ridicule. However, Empress Dowager Zhuang only cared about her 5 candied plums and didn't understand the deeper meaning of his self-title. Empress Dowager Zhuang dismissed the servants, and the Emperor also dismissed Eunuch Wei and the others. Only the mother and son were left on the long path. The Emperor had struggled all night before deciding to tell Empress Dowager Zhuang everything. She was one of the victims and had the right to know the truth. However, his thoughts were still very chaotic, so his speech was somewhat incoherent. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Zhuang understood. She could also see that this foolish son had been tricked by Xiao Lulang, that little black sesame glutinous rice ball. However, the truth was the truth. Xiao Lulang didn't distort the facts. "I didn't expect Mother Jing to do that. But Mother, don't worry, I have already destroyed the imperial edict." He didn't know if he had expressed himself clearly enough. The Empress Dowager's expression was too calm. He suspected that she didn't understand. He continued, "And the relationship with Mother all these years is actually a misunderstanding. I have been. So you don't have to act anymore?" Empress Dowager Zhuang interrupted the Emperor. The Emperor was slightly startled. The main point is this? No more acting means no more 5 candied plums." Without the filter of candied plums, the Emperor lost his attraction. Empress Dowager Zhuang's smile collapsed. She turned around with a look of disgust. "I'm leaving." The Emperor was speechless. Did he just explain his loneliness? Empress Dowager Zhuang's cold reaction was a heavy blow to the Emperor. The Emperor naturally didn't think that it was because he had lost the value of the candied plums. He stubbornly believed that Empress Dowager Zhuang was angry at him for hurting her all these years. Some things could be thought through in an instant. However, some ravines took more than 20 years to cross. The Emperor went to Qishui Alley again. Xiao Lulang guessed that the Emperor would frequently go to Qishui Alley these days, so he asked for leave from Hanlin Academy and stayed at home to take care of Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao sat on the bed, eating and drinking while admiring her husband's handsome face. Xiao Lulang sat on the stool beside the bed and peeled oranges for her. His joints were distinct and his fingers were slender. He also did manual labor, but he was naturally good-looking, like a beautiful jade. Gu Jiao looked at his face for a while, then at his hands for a while. Xiao Lulang was used to her naked gaze, but he couldn't help but feel confused. Was he really that good-looking? He was a cripple who might not get better for the rest of his life, forever dragging a broken body. She would always be criticized if she was with him. "Gu Jiao, I am a cripple." He didn't pay attention and said what was on his mind. Gu Jiao said, "I know." Xiao Lulang continued to peel the oranges in his hands. "You really don't mind? I might not get better. You also saw that I worked very hard for rehabilitation and didn't miss a day, but I just can't walk. Like you." She had expectations for him in her heart. She hoped that he could walk like a normal person one day. But he was afraid that he really couldn't do it. When her patience ran out, would she still look at him like she did now? Feelings were very subtle things. The more you cared about something, the more you lacked confidence in yourself. In the past, he didn't think that it was a big deal to have a crippled leg. Anyway, life was dark, and no one could see it. Even he couldn't see it. Those who could see it, he pretended that they couldn't see it. But suddenly, one day, she lit a lamp, illuminating the road under his feet and also illuminating his sorry state. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. Didn't he not care about his leg? Feng Lin was scared half to death when he performed the operation on him, but he didn't care at all. Why did he care now? Gu Jiao couldn't guess what he was thinking. She thought about it and pointed at the birthmark on her face. "Then do you mind that I'm so ugly?" She didn't know that the mark on her face was the mark of chastity. She thought that it would stay with her for the rest of her life. Xiao Lulang opened his mouth. Idiot. Why would he mind? Moreover, this mark would disappear. When you become so perfect, will you still think that a crippled body like mine is worthy of you? Gu Jiao didn't understand his sudden mood. She thought about it seriously and asked, Is there something bothering you? Is it because of what I said last night? You don't want me to watch you bathe? No. It wasn't about that at all. Gu Jiao's big eyes lit up. So you want me to watch you bathe? Xiao Lulang. Why is it so hard to explain? Eunuch Wei and the emperor's voices came from outside the door. Gu Jiao quickly lay down. Xiao Lulang planned to put the peeled orange on the table. Unexpectedly, her small hand reached out and took the orange. She hid it in her hand under the quilt. It's mine, she said. Xiao Lulang met the emperor in the central room. The emperor asked about Gu Jiao's condition. Xiao Lulang said that it was better than yesterday. He was awake all morning and only went to sleep after lunch. The emperor felt that he came at a bad time. He came to ask about the medicine. Where is your majesty feeling unwell? Xiao Lulang asked. If it was a minor illness, he could ask the doctor in the medical hall to treat the emperor. If it was a serious illness, he could only let Jiao Jiao wake again. The emperor hadn't slept all night. At this time, he was very haggard. It really did look like he was seriously ill. The emperor said, I want to ask if there is an antidote for the black medicine. I cough. He cleared his throat and continued, I have been at odds with Imperial Mother for many years. Most of it was because of the medicine. Now that the truth has been revealed, I want to ask about the antidote. Xiao Lulang looked at him in confusion. You keep calling her Imperial Mother. Do you really need an antidote? Gu Jiao said that there wasn't much of the medicine left in His Majesty's body. Otherwise, concubine Jing wouldn't have taken the risk of drugging him again. Now that the truth had been revealed, the last bit of the medicine's effect had probably disappeared under the stimulation of the truth. However, Xiao Lulang was no longer the naive youth of the past. He had his own thoughts, his own plans, and even the shrewdness of an official. He lowered his eyes and sighed. There was originally no antidote, but Jiao Jiao once refined a type of pill that was specifically used to counter knockout drugs. I think it might have some effect. Are you serious? The emperor's eyes lit up. Xiao Lulang said, I'll get it for your majesty to try. Jiao Jiao's medicine is very safe. Even if it doesn't have any effect, it won't harm the body. The emperor said with joy, If it really works, I'll remember your merit. Xiao Lulang said, The medicine was made by Jiao Jiao. It's Jiao Jiao's credit, not mine. Even so, the emperor noted down the contributions of both of them. He had wronged Empress Dowager Zhuang for so many years that he had forgotten some things. Perhaps he would remember everything after taking the medicine. Moreover, there seemed to be a barrier between him and Empress Dowager Zhuang that made him afraid to move forward. He guessed that it was the effect of the black medicine. If Xiao Lulang knew what he was thinking, he would definitely tell him, That's your son's problem, your majesty. Xiao Lulang quickly brought the pills over. There were 3 in total. In fact, they were for Gu Qinglin's hair growth. There were no side effects. The emperor was middle-aged and had some trouble with hair loss. It was good to take some hair growth pills. Xiao Lulang handed the hair growth pill to the emperor and said without a change in expression, Logically speaking, 1 pill should be enough. If the effect is not enough, take another. In other words, 3 pills were more than enough. Will it really work? The emperor asked. Your Majesty, you have to believe in Jiao Jiao's medical skills, Xiao Lulang said. That's true. The emperor paused and thought of something. He asked, What will happen if I eat too much? Will the effect be doubled or the opposite? Xiao Lulang looked deeply at the emperor and said, The effect will be doubled. It might become what? The emperor asked anxiously. Very clingy. Ah. The emperor was frightened. He didn't want that. He was the ruler of a country, the emperor. How could he become like that? One pill. One pill was enough. The emperor suddenly had the urge to urinate. He temporarily put the medicine bottle on the table in the central room and went to the toilet room. The old chancellor secretly came out from the kitchen room. Zhuang Jins came over today and was playing cards next door. He was making brown sugar glutinous rice cake for Zhuang Jins. He asked, "Is there really an antidote?" Xiao Lulang said, "It's fake. It's hair growth pills." The old chancellor. When the emperor came out from the toilet room, the old chancellor had already returned to the kitchen room to cook. The emperor planned to take the antidote back to the palace. He didn't expect Empress Dowager Zhuang to come over after playing cards next door. The mother and son met at the door unexpectedly. The emperor was nervous. "Mother." Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even look at him. She snorted and walked past him. "Your Majesty, are you still going back to the palace?" Eunuch Wei asked. The emperor hesitated for a moment and said, "No, I will stay here for dinner. I will return to the palace with mother later." No one dared to say anything when the emperor wanted to stay for dinner. Today, the little men at home weren't here. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshan went to learn martial arts. Little Jing Kong went to play at Su Kongji's house. There were only Empress Dowager Zhuang, the emperor, Yao, the old chancellor, Xiao Lulang, and Gu Jiao, who woke up from her afternoon nap at the dining table. The pill given by Gu Jiao was a little big and couldn't be swallowed. It had to be mixed with water. Before dinner, the emperor gave the medicine bottle to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei brought over a bowl of black medicinal concoction. The emperor endured the unpleasant smell, gritted his teeth, and drank it all in one go. The emperor said with disdain, "Why is it so bitter? How many pills did you put in?" Eunuch Wei wondered, "Aren't there only 3 pills in total?" The emperor's face changed. You put all of them?" Eunuch Wei was even more shocked. "You asked me to put all of them." The emperor had no impression of it at all. Eunuch Wei didn't lie. He did ask and the emperor did say yes. However, the emperor was thinking about Empress Dowager Zhuang at that time and didn't hear what Eunuch Wei said. Thinking of what Xiao Lulang had said about the extremely sticky effects of the drug, the emperor felt unwell. "Your Majesty, what's wrong with you?" Eunuch Wei asked worriedly. The emperor took a deep breath. "Nothing, I am the emperor. I won't do such a shameful thing. I can bear it. I am very rational." After dinner, Empress Dowager Zhuang should return to the palace. She got up and walked out. The emperor covered his heart. Was the effect of the medicine? Why did he suddenly want to chase after her? "Your Majesty?" His heart was beating so fast. "Your Majesty?" Empress Dowager Zhuang got on the carriage with the help of Eunuch Qin. No, he couldn't chase after her. The effect of the medicine was too strong. Who knew what she would say later? The emperor held back. Eunuch Qin put down the curtain for Empress Dowager Zhuang, took away the footrest, and sat on the outer seat. The wheels of the carriage moved slowly. The emperor's heart tightened and he suddenly reached out to the carriage. "Mother, don't you want your Xiao, Hong, Hong?" Everyone in the room spat out a mouthful of tea. Then, should they tell His Majesty that the medicine was fake? Digression. Psychological hints are very scary. 23333 The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/896428261 HTML Genius remember the website address www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.